Okay, cool. So looks like we got a decent amount of people in here. I'm not going to do any call-ins right now. Appreciate you trying to call in, Carol, but maybe towards the end, I'll let a couple people call in if you guys want. First, I'm just going to talk about the vibe of this main event. It was definitely one of the softer WSP main events I've seen compared to any other main event. I think there's just a lot of new people coming back into poker. Yeah, so these hands are in Quip. I'll post the link right now in the doc. I wrote down every single hand I played in the main, and I emailed them to people. So you should have gotten that email. We're basically going to go through the green hands. I will post in the chat here. But one thing I want to say is when I'm talking through these hands, it's better if you don't look at the doc for the hand until after I'm done with the hand, because there's going to be some spots I'm going to ask you what you would do. And I want you to really test yourself, not to kind of cheat and see what I did and then answer. If you really want to learn and exercise your brain, then you want to partake in that normally. But yeah, I'm going to still post it anyways, because what you guys can do is duplicate the doc and write your own notes. Those of you who are new to these sessions, I always encourage to write your own notes. Any poker training video or anything you ever do, you should definitely be taking notes, because you're not going to retain every single thing we talk about today. But if you take notes, you're going to be able to retain a much higher percentage of it. Okay, so we're starting with day number 1, which is towards the bottom of the dock. We'll see. I'm going to go, normally we go for 2 hours, but I'm going to go for probably around 2.5 hours today, because we got a lot to go through and there's a lot of new people in here. My guess is we'll get through probably 2 days, but let's see how it goes. So let me just pull up day 1 real quick. Okay. Starting at the bottom of the document, not the complete bottom, but if you scroll down to where it says day 1, here, I'll put it on the screen real quick. If you scroll down like almost towards the bottom where it says day 1, I'm going through these green hands, and then I'm going to go up to day 2 and so on. So yeah, we're right here right now, hand number 2. Again, don't, yep, ace 4 hearts. Again, don't look at the action that I wrote on the doc until later. So here we have an open, a call, and the cutoff. What do you guys typically do here? What do you think we should do here? You can say fold, you can say call, you can say 3-bet squeeze. If you are going to raise, say the sizing. And it could be a mix if you're, sometimes doing one or the other. We always want to start with assuming no information on the player unless I tell you there's some information. Okay, so we have, it looks like a couple calls, couple folds. Chris wants to 3-bet to, when you say 4.75, what do you mean by 4.75? Are you talking about 4.75 thousand? You could clarify there. Okay, so folding would definitely be way too tight here. This is definitely a really good, when you suited aces do really good multi-way, especially when you're this deep stacked. When you're playing deep stack poker, it's all about being able to draw to the nuts. That's what it's all about. So we're definitely continuing here. I would say it's a mix between a call and a squeeze. But in general, in this main event, people are overvaluing the tournament life. They're not going to 4-bet with the right hands. They're going to call with hands that are going to be tough to play out of position. So I'm being a little bit more aggressive than normal here. And yeah, I went about 4.6x the open. Probably heads up, I would have went something close to 3.5 to 4x. But since there's another caller, I'm putting a little more in there. If I was out of position, I would have went to probably something more like 5.5x. Is it normally better to call? It's really a mix. So here we could pull up a chart, for example, for this exact spot, and we see the red is the squeezing hands. Ace four suited is mixing. Notice how much of these you're supposed to squeeze. King jack suited, ace jack suited, queen jack suited, 10 jack suited. People don't squeeze nearly as much as this tells you to do. So people really under squeeze here. And it's really great to, just thin the field, take it down post flop. When you squeeze stuff like queen jack suited, you get hands that dominate you to fold. So yeah, really take advantage and do a lot more squeezing than you probably normally do. This player calls, this player folds. Here, notice the bet sizing I use. I just went 2K. When these pots get really bloated like this, you could really size down your C bets and start to use 20%, 25%. A lot of people just standardly use 1/3. And in these 3-bet pots, and this isn't a normal 3-bet pot, right? It's squeezed, so it's extra big. That on top of it being an extremely dry board, right? This player almost has no sixes in their range. Sorry, yeah, on the chart, the blue is fold, the green is call, and the red is 3-bet. Okay, so Carrie says, if we do too small of a C bet, doesn't it just look like we missed? Well, no, because we're going to do the same thing with aces. We're going to do the same thing with ace king. We'll do the same thing with king jack. So you just got to take. This is probably a spot I'm just C betting probably my entire range. It's just such a dry board. We have a lot of kings in our range, so I'm probably just C betting everything and using that small sizing here with everything. Opponent calls. So you always want to be asking yourself kind of what's your opponent calling with. So they're probably calling any pair here, close to any pair. Maybe not so much deuces through fives without a diamond. Probably not even flatting some of those pre-flop anyways. But if they did have fives, fours, maybe they might fold some of those. But yeah, definitely they're calling sevens, eights, nines, tens, jacks, queens. They're calling diamond draws. They might call something like ace queen with a diamond, even though they should have folded that pre-flop. Yeah, ace-6 suited would definitely be a fold if you're this player. That hand's not going to play very well. You should be super tight here. People call squeezes way too liberally when you're in the sandwich. You got to remember, you're going to be out of position versus likely 2 players here. So that's really crappy. Offsuit hands just do horribly here, which is why I don't even really want to call ace-queen. I might just fold it or 4-bet fold ace-queen if I was that guy. So we bet small here. And then I decided to barrel here. And the reason I barreled is our opponent just has so many hands they have to fold. Queens, jacks, tens, nines, sevens. Some of that ace queen with the diamond if they decided to peel that pre-flop. And I really like that we unblock all their folds. Right? So when your opponent has a lot of hands they have to fold to a double barrel, you really want to think about unblocking those hands. So Soon says, if you got 4-bet here, would you call to see a flop? That's a good question. Let's see. And keep in mind, you don't get 4-bet very often here. Probably not, to be honest. I'd probably just be folding unless they went really tiny. But in general, the problem here is a lot of their 4-bet bluffs are going to be stuff like ace-10 suited, maybe some king-queen, ace-jack. So I don't like that I'm dominated by a lot of those 4-bet bluffs. And the SPR is just going to be super low. I'm probably just folding unless they went really tiny. This player can be doing some 4-bet bluffs with some stuff like king-10 suited, king-jack suited, and those type of hands. But in general, especially in the main, most people are just very value heavy when they 4-bet here. So I'm also going to overfold versus a lot of people. But if it's kind of reg on reg crime, then yeah, I'm going to peel a little bit lighter, and I'm going to depend on the sizing. But probably leading towards just folding this one. So yeah, double barrel there. Yeah, pretty straightforward spot. I think a lot of people don't bluff here often enough. Before I move on to the next hand, do you guys have any questions on why we're barreling here? Or any thoughts you want to share of why you normally wouldn't barrel here? Or any hesitation you have to barrel here? Another thing to keep in mind is the smaller we bet the flop, the more that player is going to, oops, sorry about that. The smaller we bet the pot, the wider this player is going to peel. And that's going to make us want to barrel a little bit more on the turn as well, because they get to the turn with a weaker range. Kara says, what are we unblocking? We're unblocking queens, jacks, 10s, 9s, 7s. Those are all hands they're going to have to fold. Yeah, I don't think villain has very many 6s here. They definitely have some kings, but not many. So turn sizing should be large. I went large here to kind of make the player feel like if they call here, they're going to have to call off a river shove. So that was kind of what I was thinking in terms of sizing. We could check out what Pio says in terms of the sizing here. Let's see. I think I do have this hand ran. Let me pull it up real quick. Let's see what Pio does on the turn. Give me one moment. Yeah, I just felt like if I went small here, opponent might have still found a call with some of those hands. Okay, never mind. I don't have this in Pio. I did run it though, and it definitely was a barrel. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that I bet big enough so that this player feels like, all right, if I call down here with jacks, I'm calling off my tournament life by the river. I wanted them to feel that. So that's why I used this sizing. I also felt like I might be able to get them to fold some stuff like queen jack of diamonds. If I go this size, they really shouldn't be flatting that pre-flop, but it's the main event and people were calling some stuff like that. But yeah, I guess really not so many diamond draws were getting to fold. So yeah, really wasn't focused on that. Really just those pairs. I wanted to make sure they get out of there. So yep. All right, we're going to go on to next hand here. King jack off here. What do you guys want to do here? Are we folding, calling, 3-betting? If you're 3-betting, stay the size. Some say fold, some say if you're 3-betting, stay the size. Okay, so carry, folding is definitely way too tight. This player's opening extremely wide range here. We're well ahead of their range. People call way too much in this spot. We definitely want to be 3-betting. We want to 3-bet pretty large. My 3-bet's actually a little bit small. I could have went a little bit bigger, but this player wasn't particularly a strong player. I didn't think they're going to be flatting the correct hands. They're probably going to be overfolding, if anything, especially in the main event. So I felt fine going this size. If there's anyone who normally calls here and needs some convincing on why you should be 3-betting most of your continues here, then just holler. I'm happy to elaborate on that a little bit more. Edward, Danny's making a comment about some people not able to get in. If you could help him out with that. So we 3-bet here. If it was under the gun, I would definitely just be folding. I would be folding probably, yeah, any of these first 2 position people I'm folding versus these later position people I'm starting to play either as a flat or a 3-bet. But yeah, when you're this deep, you're really incentivized to 3-bet because You don't want to be out of position multi-way this deep. The deeper the stacks are, the more advantage the in-position player has. So by 3-betting, we lower the stack to pot ratio, which takes away this player's advantage. So when you just peel here all the time, you're just bleeding out a lot of chips. And that is no good. So I'm 3-betting really here, like all my Broadway hands almost. Maybe some 10 jack off and some of those things I might fold or flat. He 3x, so I'm probably folding. But if he 2.5x or 2.2x, I'm probably peeling some stuff like 10 jack off here. So here, my instinct was to bet big. And when I say big, I mean around 2/3. And I ended up sizing down a little bit more than what I normally would do. And this player just struck me as kind of, an older amateur who, like, this tournament was a really big deal to him. And he wasn't going to bust out calling down with something stupid. My image really wasn't too crazy yet. But I just felt like he might overfold like 5, 6s, 3s, deuces. Whereas he should be peeling those versus the small bet, and he should be folding versus a bigger bet. What do you guys normally do here? Is this a spot where you guys normally bet smaller? Do you normally bet bigger? Do you want me to elaborate more? I'm going to pull up, I'm actually going to pull up a solve here to kind of show you the difference between betting small and big here. So Jeremy said to do more checking on connecting middling boards. No, absolutely. This is a board you're going to definitely do a decent amount of checking on, but that doesn't mean you're checking everything, right? We have 2 overs and we have a gut shot. So the problem with checking is it's really hard to realize our equity here. If we check, we just get blown off a ton of equity. So betting is just the easiest way for us to realize our equity. So if we look at a pile solve here, in case anyone's not familiar with how to read this, the red is the betting, the green is the checking, the board is right here. It's 100 big blinds deep. The pot is 18 big blinds there. So this is showing that we're checking 38% of our hands, and we're betting the rest. So that's quite a bit of checking here. And if we look at King Jack here at the bottom right, you can see the combos. It's pretty much betting big, the darker red, with all of our King Jack. So here's what happens when you bet small here. This player gets to peel these 5s, 6s, deuces, 3s, some ace high stuff. Ace Jack and ace queen are still going to float you a bit. Whereas if we bet, so 16% of the hands fold. Whereas when we bet big, we get a significant amount of more folds. We get out these 8, 7, 6s, 5s. So that's kind of the difference between betting small and big here. Now, so think about the exploit that I kind of pulled off here, right? Even though I know I'm supposed to bet big here, so people often say like, "Oh, studying GTO is pointless if you're playing like live soft games because people don't play like that," right? But no, look at what I'm doing. I understand the GTO response of what a big bet does versus small bet. And I also understand that this player is going to treat my kind of medium-sized bet as if it was a big bet. So I don't need to bet 2/3, right? I just want like 40% because my read was it accomplishes the same thing as betting 2/3 versus this particular player. So that's an exploit. That's an adjustment I'm doing. But I really need to understand that GTO kind of concept to be able to make that adjustment. So MW says, does a rec usually read this as weak? I feel like if you're constantly kind of betting small and they kind of see that, okay, this player standardly bets like 25%, then no. So it seems like it's a common theme that I hear a lot of paranoia of like, oh, if I bet small, it's going to look weak. I mean, these days betting 1/3 is very common. And If you come in there and you're just making your 1/3 as your standard C bet, even with your big hands, people are going to start to realize that, and they're not going to just think of your small bet as small. This player kind of respected me as a good player, thought, so, and I was betting small in some other hands, so I didn't have any reason to think that they would take it this way. Yeah, and I did go a notch over kind of my standard C bet. So I went a little bit bigger than I was C betting on some other boards. Yep. Okay, so here I bet, and then on the turn, I decided to continue. And the reason why I continued was because we have the heart in our hand. So I basically was going to shut down with King Jack unless I had a spade or a heart in my hand. So basically, make sure you think about those blockers. And the reason why I am continuing when there's a heart and spade is because if the heart or spade comes on the river, I'm going to keep barreling off. So MW seems still a little scared to bet small because he thinks the rec will think it's weak. Then just try to bet small with your big hands and see how they react. Are you basically saying they're just never going to fold to a small bet? Then just bet small every time you have it and see how they react. I mean, you'll start to see you're not getting action every time. But again, that was my particular read on this player. So I'm not advocating always betting small on this board. That was just my adjustment versus this player. Okay, so Ike says, do you want to unblock his flush draw or block his flush draw? I don't want to unblock the flush draw here because I don't think he's going to fold a flush draw. If there's a scenario where I think I can get the player to fold a flush draw, then yeah, I would want to unblock it. But here, I think they're continuing with the flush draw. They're in position, and all their flush draws are going to be like ace high or have a straight draw with it, and so on. So I really want to block the flush draw here. Yeah, so you could see if we do look at what we're barreling on this turn, then you see if you look at the King Jack combos in the right, it's pretty much green anytime it does not have a spade or a heart in it. Whereas it's going for it when we have a heart or a spade in it. It's also betting stuff like ace 10 and king 10 for value, jacks, queens, kings. Doing some bluffing with some 6-7, 7-8 type hands. Doing a little bit of bluffing with ace 4. That's an interesting bluff. Ace 4 diamonds here. That's probably the only non-obvious one, but I think the rest is pretty straightforward. So we bet and we got to fold here. I felt like, again, versus player that's really overvaluing their tournament life, that by betting big here, they might overfold some 9x that they probably should be continuing with. So if you look at Payo, they're supposed to call a lot of their 9s here. I felt like this player was going to overfold them. And that's why I decided to kind of go the bigger size, even though I didn't necessarily have to. So that was my thinking on the turn there. All right, let's go to next hand. What was this? Oh, this is the hand we just did. So yeah, I just also want to quickly pause and talk about the vibe at the main event. So people were overfolding like crazy. People were scared to play big pots. People just have this kind of mindset of like, oh, you can't go broke early in the main. I think there's also this thing where like people have told all their friends back home they're going to play the main event, their family, their friends, they've saved up for it. And right? Right, a lot of people's family and friends don't really get this poker thing they're doing, and you don't want to show up as the idiot that busted on day one. So because of that, they put a lot of emphasis into making day two, and you really get to take advantage of that. Ike says, did you have a recreational heavy table? Every table was recreational heavy. I talked to all my friends. Every table was recreational heavy. And I did a lot of exploitative things here. And I don't want you to think that this doesn't apply to other tournaments, because it does. It's just that normally there's like a couple players at the table in your main events that are going to be like this. Whereas here, there was like 6 players at each table that were playing like that. So if you're able to recognize who are those people that this is a big deal, or they're going to overfold, yada, 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 right, you could make some of those adjustments as well. 7-6 off here. Checks around. Oh, this hand we're skipping. That's not the one I meant to go through. This hand we're skipping. All right, this was a super interesting hand. So here I 3-bet pocket 8s from early position. People do way too much flatting from this spot in early position. And the reason you want to do a lot of 3-betting here is it just sucks when it goes call, call, call behind. And you go from having a good hand to a basically hand that's only set mining. So we're really incentivized to kick people out behind us. Also, another thing is when we 3-bet here and we're this deep and the flop comes small cards, 6, 7, 8, 5, 6, 7, we just never have any of that. So we're really so it's really nice to kind of mix it up and have a couple of these kind of middling cards in our range, if that makes sense. Any questions on the 3-bet here? Sorry, the mic's away. Would I 3-bet 6s or 7s? Less so much, but probably still doing it to a very low frequency, I guess you could say. So I could pull up what the chart looks like for 100 big blinds deep from these positions. And look how little flatting we're doing. This is under the gun versus under the gun, under the gun 1 versus under the gun 2, 8-handed. So look at it's almost doing no flatting, very, very little flatting. It's doing, yeah, it's mixing in some flats with queens, jacks, 10s, 9s, 8s, queen jack suited, ace 10 suited, ace queen suited. It's doing less flatting with the offsuit stuff because offsuit stuff plays really bad post flop, multi-way out of position. So Ike says, when it's a mixed spot like this, do I randomize or is it player dependent? So a lot of pros, a lot of players will tell you to randomize. I am pretty anti-randomizing. And the reason is because I have a brain and I believe you can just use your head and think about the dynamics at the table and make your decisions based on that. So I'm thinking more along the lines of what am my image? What is this player image? How are they going to perceive things? Now, so I'm deciding based on that. Now, I would be willing to flat in this spot a lot more than this chart is telling you to do. And it's because this chart is assuming that everyone behind is squeezing. Remember how much squeezing I was showing in that previous chart? No one's doing that. Some of the good players are. So what I would do here is if there's good players in position, then I would probably be playing similar to this. But if there's not a lot of good players behind that are going to squeeze a lot, then I'm probably increasing how much I'm willing to flat some of these hands. And on these mixed spots, I'm probably going a little more flat heavy. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I think some people are having trouble getting in, so I'm just messaging. I think some people aren't going to get in, so hopefully we'll get them in soon. Livespot's working on it. Okay, let's get back to these hands. Okay, so any questions on the 3-betting pre-flop before we continue with the rest of this hand? So this player went ahead and 4-bet from the big blind. This player, I overheard him saying he won WPT Jacksonville, but he's not really much of a tournament player. He plays mostly cash. Maybe he's even here in the chat. I don't know. He mentioned he might join. So flop comes 7-6-6, and player does a small c-bet. It's a pretty decent flop for us, given that we have some backdoor stuff going on, but really no raising going on. Just a pretty standard call here. This is where the really interesting decision comes in, and we're gonna pull this spot up on Pile Solver in a little bit. So what do you guys want to do here after this opponent checks? There's 38K in the pot. We had a little bit more back than this. This says we have 31 back and 38. I think it was more about like 38 back and 38 in the pot. So assume there's a pot size bet left here. What do you guys want to do here? Yeah, so the big blind cold 4-bet here. And I decided to peel. This is a mixing spot. This was probably one of the... I mean, there's this player, one of the guy that I thought were capable of 4-betting a little bit light. When I mean light, I just mean like ace queen and king queen suited and stuff. So my read was, they're going to have pre-flop hands like jacks plus, king queen suited, ace queen, maybe some tens, but probably not, but possible. So we got a couple jams, couple checks. What do the rest of you want to do? Let me get this pulled up. Give me 1 second. 4-bet pot. So the standard play here would definitely be to check back. And the problem with betting small is you have so much equity, and it really sucks to get blown off so much equity. So the standard line would be to check back because of that. And let me just pull this up. I'll have it up in 1 second. The board was 4-bet pots. Okay, so opponent c-bet, we called, and the turn was the 9 with the backdoor flush draw. Opponent So here's opponent's strategy. It shows they should be checking a lot of aces, kings, jacks, tens. They check. And this is our strategy. Eights is a pure check. Getting checkers really sucks. So pure check. It's checking stuff like tens, jacks. There's not a lot of value to get out of betting jacks. So yeah, it's really just betting some of the bigger pairs. I don't really know why it's betting, checking some kings, and I don't really know why this is happening, but it's just a one-off thing. I'm not going to read too much into that. The main thing I want you to take away is eights, the pure check. So do I have any bluffs here? It looks like the main bluffs are like if we floated the flop with like ace 4, ace 5 with a backdoor flush draw. Those would be pretty much our key bluffs. I didn't have us flatting 5-4 suited. Otherwise, that would have been one of the bluffs. I think you're 10x suited. So on the flop, you can float here with like 10 jack suited because it's has 2 overs, a backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw. So that could be one of our bluffs. But yeah, we don't have a lot of bluffs, and that's why I don't need to bet so big. Yeah, it looks like the link is working now, so people can get in. If any of you are talking to friends who weren't able to get in, you could let them know the issue is fixed now. So people are going to get in. So I ended up betting this spot, even though I knew this was a spot I normally would check. So this is another example of me taking an exploitative line. And the reason why was, again, because, well, actually, I had a specific read on this player. So about 2-3 orbits ago, there was a hand where some guy bet the river with a king high flush, and this player had an ace high flush, and there was like a pair of deuces on the board that was very unlikely for anyone to have a boat. And he was like, I'm such a nit. And then he called. And it was just clear that he also like really didn't want to bust the main event early. Like he was just overvaluing his tournament life. So I didn't feel like he was going to go take some of these aces and kings and queens and jam them. That was my logic, that like, hey, if he's not going to value bet, if he's not going to value jam some of those over pairs, then I'm just going to go for a really small, cheap protection bet and then check it back on the river. Or I have the option to even try to bluff him on the river if I think I could scare him off, you know? Maybe if a jack came or something, I might try to bluff him off. I also did think that there's a chance he could fold some things like jacks or queens. So now to kind of double check my theory, I did some node locking. So what that means is I adjusted this player's turn shove strategy based on my reads. So if we bet small, I node locked it to say that this guy might. Sorry, what's going on here? Yeah, I basically node locked it to do what we say, where he doesn't really jam aces, kings. He folds jacks or queens like maybe half the time. And yeah, he just doesn't make those jams. And now you could see this is our adjusted turn strategy on the right. And this is our GTO strategy on the left. So let me try to see the best way for you guys to visualize that stuff. So again, left is GTO, and the right is our adjustment versus someone who doesn't value jam wide enough, and someone who might overfold jacks and queens in the turn. Any questions on this? Yeah, so he tanked for like 4 minutes, started taking his hat off, and I was like, oh shit, I think he's gonna like jam or fold because he's kind of revealing that he doesn't have a strong hand. So I was like, oh man, I really hope he doesn't jam. Yeah, so 8-8 becomes not a pure bet, but pretty much like it's betting 77% of the time now that he's not jamming, he's not value jamming. So yeah, I mean, it's almost betting everything once he's playing the way he is. Yeah, so he tanked for a long time and finally folded. And then after the break, he told me his friends were giving him a bunch of shit for folding and that he had jacks. I mean, honestly, I could understand his fold. This is what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to just continue tens and jacks because I bet so small. But I could see what he's thinking. He's probably thinking, like, what do I beat? He probably didn't expect me to bet like eights and tens and 8-9. But that was an adjustment that I was making. So that was a super interesting spot. Yeah. And we took that down. So that was a nice pot. And yeah, but by having hands like this, that I was able to 3-bet pre-flop and continue versus 4-bet and put a lot of pressure on these low boards, it just makes me really annoying to play against. So a lot of people are scared to kind of take some of these pre-flop 3-bets because they're like, like I don't want to like get into these high variance spots and I want to keep the pot small. But by me having this nice wide balanced 3-bet range, I get to be really sticky on a lot of different boards. I get to put a lot of pressure on players. I get to be a pain in their ass on all sorts of different boards. And that makes people really scared to play against me. And that helps me win more pots later in the day. So, so yeah, really trust these ranges and trust that there's reason and logic behind these things. And if this doesn't make sense to you and you don't see why you'd want to 3-bet these, then rather than just go with the logic in your head, test yourself. Go in the student Discord group, ask people, ask your peers, people that are better than you, and try to understand why it's doing those things. Okay, next hand, Jack 10. Flatted the big blind here. This guy bets about half the pot. What do you guys want to do here? Are you calling? Are you folding? Are you raising? Again, if you ever say raise or bet, always say the amount as well. So I think calling's fine, but I think raising's a little bit better here. We're very deep stacked, and when you're deep stacked and you have the flush blocker, it's a really nice spot to start raising, and if the club comes, you can put a lot of pressure on. The issue with calling here is you call and opponent just barrels like crazy on these turns. If you guys remember who were in the double barrel lesson, when we call here, we have so much 5-6, 6-7, 9-10, 10 jack, king jack with the club, ace 10 with the club, that this player just gets to go crazy on turns and do a bunch of big betting. and blows us off a ton of equity. If you guys remember that lesson, that was a really powerful one, I know, for a lot of you. So think about this in position player's perspective there, right? They're going to blow us off so much equity. So by doing this, we prevent them from blowing us off that equity. Let me show you what I mean here for a sec. So player bets, right here, it's showing that 10 jack with the club. If you look at the bottom right, the matrix, it's mostly raising with the club, just calling without. Let's see what happens when we call and the turn's a blank. We check. Look at all this big betting this player gets to do with just like random shit like ace deuce, ace three, ace nine, ace 10, king 10, just so many, all these dark red. They just get to overbet a bunch of turns and make us fold all this equity, 10 jack, 9 jack, 9 10. So that's the issue here. It's equity. It's a game of equity denial. So when we raise, what do we accomplish? Well, we immediately get them off some of these small pairs, 3s, 5s, 6s. We get them off some ace highs. And more importantly, we just get to realize our equity. Any questions on that before we move on to the turn? Hey, Paul. MW says, do you think population in low mid stakes is folding the jack 10 or raising? I would guess low stakes people are just calling here a lot. That would be my guess, which is why I'm going to barrel even more aggressively than what Pio is saying to do. Yep. Any questions on this check raise or why we're check raising and not calling? Carol said, does he have a 3-bet range? Honestly, I don't study too much 3-bet ranges versus a check raise because people just don't do it very much. And in general, there's not a lot of it, even supposed to. So this is what his 3-bet range in the flop is supposed to be, Carol. It's 4% of hands are raising here. So not to answer your question, it's not really. Yeah, not really. 1 sec. Sorry, guys. How less deep would you need to be to not check raise? Well, it's kind of the other way around, Kyle. I feel like the shallower I am, the more likely I would be to raise because now I'm okay to start getting it in. Oh, sorry. Okay. Kyle said, how less deep would you need to be to not check raise? Okay. So what Kyle is asking, and that's good. It sounds like Kyle might already be aware of this, but if we were super shallow, like 30 bigs, I would do the opposite and I would just call with jack 10 with the club and I would check raise without the club. So the exact opposite of the combos. If we were shallow, like 30 big blinds. So see this trend here? How we're raising the clubs and not the non-clubs? It flips if we're 25 bigs, 20 bigs, 30 big blinds deep. Does anybody want to take a stab at why they think that is? Or if you don't understand the question, I'm happy to repeat it. So what I'm saying is when you're deep stacked, you want to check raise here with jack 10 with the club. When you're shallow stacked, you would rather have check raise with the combos without the club, and you would just call with the club. Any guesses? I'll give another 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds. Carol says, because you can barrel in turn with clubs when you're deep stacked. Yes, that's definitely partly the answer. But I think there's another kind of bigger point here. Hoping the opponent has clubs, implied odds backdoor. You need less to stack off. Blockers, SPR, unblocking the clubs he's drawn to. The main reason here, so I'm not saying the answer, so I'll just go ahead and say it. So when you're shallow, if you check raise jack 10 with a club, you're shallow enough that he might just shove on you. He might just get it in. And when he shoves, you just got blown off a ton of equity. That's bad. You never want to put yourself in a situation to get blown off a ton of equity, right? When you have Jack 10 with a club, you really want to see the turn card. Here, at 90 bigs deep, I'm not worried about not seeing the turn card if we check raise. At 25, 30 bigs, I'm worried that if we check raise, he jams and I don't get to see that turn card. Right? So that's one logic. The other thing is think about 10 Jack off. When we're shallow, it's going to be hard to continue anyways without the club. So I don't mind wasting it as much because it's going to be hard to kind of continue anyways. Whereas with the 10 Jack, with the clubs, you know, if a club comes and he barrels, we could do some check shoving, we could do some leading and stuff like that. Does that make sense? Something I ask students to do in these sessions a lot is if you learned something or I just explained a concept or something new to you, for you to write it back out in the chat. It's going to help you retain the information. It's also going to help others kind of see it worded differently. And it's going to help me see that you understood it. Or if you say it the wrong way, I can kind of help you fine tune that. So anyone who wants to go ahead and take a stab to reword that, what that concept was I just explained in your own words, that'll be really good for you. And that's something you should do anytime you're watching a poker training video, talking to a coach, a mentor, whatever. You should always repeat what they said in your own words. That's something I do all the time so that they can check me. So take your time, go ahead and put it in the chat. Well, take a stab, Paul. Sound like an idiot. Who cares? We're all here to learn. Everyone in these group sessions is super chill. No one's here to judge you. There's people of all sorts of different skill levels. Right? The more you're comfortable with saying something that's way off, the more you're going to learn. Okay, so Dean says the less shallow they might put us all in, blowing us off equity. So therefore what, Dean sees? So you said it right, but so what do you want to do because of that? Which combo are you more likely to check raise when? I just want you guys to finish the kind of statement. So the contrarian says, shallow, we might not want to check raise when we have a lot of equity and don't want to get shoved on. Yep, perfect. The contrarian nailed it. Yep, Vivian nailed it. Alan says, so this could be a dumb question, but Jack 10 is technically in position, but the low Jack has position in the hand. I'm not sure I understand the question. If the cards were reversed, I'm not sure what you mean by if the cards were reversed. Okay, you're saying if I had Jack 10 and a low Jack. So, okay, that's actually a good question, Alien. So Alien is saying, what if the seats were reversed? What if this guy has the Jack 10 with the club? That same concept applies. So that's why I'm actually really happy you asked that question. But so let's say you have like 10 big blinds, like 12 big blinds, right? Let's say you opened on a 15 big blind stack and now you have Jack 10 with the club. Well, it would really suck to bet and then get shoved on and get blown off your equity. So you would be a little bit more likely to check. But let's say you're, 40 bigs deep. Well, you can bet and they can raise and you can still call. So that's not a problem to still bet when you're deeper because you're not getting blown off the equity. You're going to be able to continue. So this is something I've these guys who come to these sessions all the time have heard me say, always ask yourself, how annoying is it if I get blown off, or sorry, if I bet here and get raised, can I continue? And then if the answer is no, that you can't continue, then how annoyed are you that you got blown off this hand? Right? Like if I bet ace five of diamonds here got blown off, I don't care. But if I get blown off, you know, something more significant that has a lot of equity, yeah, you feel kind of bad. Right? If I have to bet fold pocket jacks here, I feel kind of bad. So that's how you decide what hands you can do more checking with. And I use that logic, and then I double check it on pile over and over again, and it works. So all right, a check raise here. We got called. Turn was a king, so I'm also going to be check raising here with stuff like 5-6 and 6-7 with the club because we're deep stacked. So I want to have a club in my hand. And then I'm going to shut down with my 5-6, 6-7, but I'm going to continue with my 9-jack, 10-jack type stuff. And of course, if I had 5-6 of hearts or something like that, I'm continuing on this card as well. So we decided to barrel here. I'm not fully sure on what the optimal sizing was. I kind of guessed a little bit. It looks like it's mostly doing bigger sizing. 10 jack with a heart is going big. 10 jack without a heart is mixing checks and small bets. It looks like it's a decent amount of mixing, but it prefers to go big when you have a heart or a club in our hand. But it's really mixing all the combos, so it's not a huge deal. Oh, we did have a club in our hand. I didn't even realize that. Yeah, the villain has some kings there, absolutely. But that's part of why we're doing some big betting, right? When you're betting into a card that they're going to have, we're doing some more big betting because of that. But we can't just focus on like, oh, the villain might have a king, right? The villain might have a king. The villain might have jacks, 10s, 9s, 8x, 5s, ace 4, right? The villain has a bunch of stuff. So when we bet big here, the blue is what we're targeting. Yeah, when they have a king here, you know what happens when they have a king here? We lose and we go home. That's what happens when they have a king there. But who cares? Because that's only going to happen some percentage of time. And a lot of the times they have ace jack, ace 10, pocket jacks, all these blue things that we're getting folds out of. That makes sense? Now imagine if we had just called the flop and then the turn came the king of hearts. So we just called and then the turn came the king of hearts. King of hearts. Now we check. They do a big bet. Let's say, you know, they bet 9. What do we do with 10 jack? It's like we're in this stupid spot where we have to fold or we need to jam all in. You see, you just get blown off a bunch of equity. This is what happens to most players. Everyone who just said call there, which is most people, and I don't blame you. That's how most people play. This is the conundrum you get yourself in by calling there instead of check raising. Right? You have you know, your 5-6 of hearts is in an annoying spot where you got to jam and so on, so on, so on. Yep. Okay, we're going to move on to another spot. I'll answer Ike's question real quick. If the turn card brings you an additional equity, are you mostly betting on the turn, or does it depend on the blockers? I mean, this is a good example where some of the 10 jacks were checking if they don't have a heart after check raising. So it's mixing, but yeah, generally you're betting. Generally, you're betting if you pick up equity. So you do notice some of those 10 jacks and no hearts are doing a little bit of checking. But generally you're betting. Yeah. You would be checking some of your king X's that you raised. If you had king X of clubs, you could check some of them. If you raised with king 9 with the club, king 10 with the club, king jack with the club. So look at these hands that we check raised. right? We check raise king jack with the club, king 10 with the club, these king X suited, right? So we do have kings in our range. And then when the king comes, we check and we're like, oh shit, you know, we're scared of the king. That's better for them. So that's how we're balanced, and we could afford to check our queens and some other hands and not get owned, because we are going to have a king there sometimes where we call the turn and we call the river bet. What turn would I give up with the 10 jack? Honestly, with the 10 jack of clubs, I'm pretty happy being pretty aggressive on a lot of turns. So like even on the deuce of spades, I would guess we're like mixing with the 10 jack. So here you could see this is 10 jack on a blank with the club. And that's the beauty of check raising with the club when you're deep. You get to do you get to give a lot of aggression on the turn. So but like for example, like on a king, I'm, let's say a king with no flush draw, I'm giving up with 5-6. I'm giving up with 6-7. Right? So those are my give ups. I probably would give up with 10 jack if something like I want to say like a 5 I would give up possibly. Yep. So a 5 comes and we give up on 10 jack. Yeah. And the reason why I'm giving up with 10 jack when a 5 comes is because we have better hands to choose from. Right? We have these low cards that we bluffed with, like 5-6. We have our straight with the 6-7. We have our 6-8, 5-7. We just have all these better 6-4. So it's like we don't need to use 10 jack if we have so many better bluffs to choose from. How about a queen? A queen. Well, we should be check raising a decent amount of queens. So a queen is definitely an okay card for us. I would guess a queen is mixing. Probably continue with our jack 10 with our clubs and give up when we don't have them. That's my guess. Yeah, so it's another mix one. So yeah. MW says a non-club seems like a bad card for continuing. Do you agree? Not necessarily, because if it's a non-club, like the deuce, for example, that's a non-club, we still are okay with some betting. And that's because we still have a chance to hit the club on the river, right? If we bet, they call, and then the river's the 6 of clubs, then you best believe we get to keep firing on the river with the 10 jack of clubs. Oh, club ace, you're saying specifically on the turn. I mean, the thing with an ace of clubs, ace non-clubs, we have a double gutter now, so we picked up more equity. So I would definitely be betting 10 jack if we pick up, because that counts as picking up equity. So another thing we are doing on this flop is we are check raising the ace of clubs here. This should be whenever there's a flush draw, the ace of clubs with any backdoor straight draws, that is your ideal first hand you should think about check raising. That along with gut shots, right? So ace 7, ace 6, ace 5, you have a backdoor straight draw and you have a backdoor flush draw. But having the backdoor flush draw, that's one reason why you check raise. But the more important reason is you're blocking their continues. So when we have this card in our hand, this ace of clubs, look at all their continues here on the left. They're only calling ace 10 with the ace of club with the club. They're only calling ace jack with the club. They're mostly calling ace king with the club. So when you have that ace of clubs in your hand, you're getting so many extra folds because you're blocking their continues. And that's how we're balanced. And that's how, we have some aces in our check raise range. We have some kings in our check raise range. We have some 10 jack. We have some 5-6. So no matter what card comes on the turn, we can represent it. Okay, I thought that was a pretty good spot. Seems like you guys had a lot of questions on that one. Since there are new people here today, I can tell you about some of the lessons we have on here. So we meet up here every single week. And And if you join the group coaching here, that's $99 a month. You can go back and watch any of these old sessions if you go to library. And I'm also, anyone who signs up, I will email you a list of previous videos to go back and watch. So the stuff I just talked about with check raising from the big blind, C betting from the big blind, double barreling, we have entire 2-hour lessons where all we talk about is that concept the entire 2 hours and go through a bunch of different spots and have you guys ask questions and have some hacks and takeaways so you guys really nail down those spots. And the way I've structured my lessons is the same way I study myself, where you should prioritize what are there's basically too much stuff for you to learn everything, right? You can't study every single part of the game tree. It's too much. No one can. So it's really important to prioritize the right spots. So you want to prioritize what are the spots that come up the most often, meaning, you're in pre-flop spots a lot. You're in spots, heads up spots, c betting versus the big blind a lot. That's like 60% of your hands. So you want to be an expert at c betting versus the big blind, knowing, when to check back, what boards, when you should c bet range, when you should use a big c bet. You should be knowing how to check raise against a c bet, how to call down versus double barrels. So I really have structured all the lessons we've done that you could go back and watch from the most important, further out. And like 3-bet pots are important. They're not as often, but those pots are playing for a large pot amount. I sometimes every once in a while I have a lesson request from like a new one-on-one student that will come and say, oh, I want to learn like betting in 4-bet pots. And it's like, how often are you in 4-bet pots, right? You shouldn't start studying there. That should be like the last thing you look at. So yeah, any questions about that, feel free to ask. I'm just going to grab some water. So we have these lessons every week we do centered around a concept or sometimes a mixed review like today. And then we also have a student Discord group where I'll teach you guys how to talk hands. If you don't already know how to do that, how to take notes, and people could ask hands against each other, connect with other players, meet up with other players, and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to grab a quick glass of water, and then we will jump into these other hands. So we'll take like a 2-minute break, and we'll get back going again. We'll get started in a minute and a half or so. I'm just going to go into my Twitter and make sure people were able to get in now or know about it. 10 Jack, Ace King. Let's pull up the rest of these hands. Oops. Oh no, the Jack 5 one. I'm going to go ahead and put the link to the hands in the chat again for those of you who joined late. It's there. If you check the chat right now, I just posted the link. Again, try not to look at the hands or what I did in advance, because I might be quizzing you guys once in a while what you would do in certain spots. But if you want to go after and write the hands, you're welcome to. We're starting from the bottom of the dock on day 1, and then we'll move over to day 2. So right now we're still on day 1. See, where is the hand number on these? Hand number 20. So it says if you look at the top right, it says the hand number that we're on, hand number 20. So if you go down to day 1, hand number 20, that's how you can kind of keep up on the dock. So hand number 20 is Ace King. What day is this? So yeah, this is hand number 20 on day 1 of the dock. All right, let's go through this. So we opened Ace King, button calls. Okay, so I decided to c-bet here. What side did I go with? So I went about 40%. I'm fine with going 1/3 or 2/3 here. I'm probably mixing. And the question I was asking in my head is, how do I make sure this guy folds 6s and 7s and 8s? And maybe I could get him off some stuff like 5, 6 of diamonds. So I was just kind of asking myself, what size do I need to bet to get the player off those types of hands? And I landed at 1800. For some players who are stickier, I might need to go bigger. For some players who are super nitty, I might need to go smaller. Or maybe I just not even targeting those, and I just want to bet small and realize equity and get to the turn nice and cheap. So that's kind of what's going on in my head here. I get called by both. Generally, when you double barrel into 2 people, it looks extremely strong, and people will fold very quickly. No, I'm definitely not betting range on the flop. I'm not even betting range on the flop heads up. So anytime you're out of position, you should be doing a lot of checking. If you guys remember from our out of position c-betting range, when it's cut off first button, you should be checking like, or sorry, you should only be c-betting like 20-25% of the time if you're out of position, like cut off first button. But if you're early position versus button, you can c-bet like 66% of the time, approximately, because you have a stronger range. So here, we're not cut off, we're not under the gun, we're kind of, middle-ish. So yeah, we're probably c-betting heads up here about 50-60% of the time or something. But because it's multi-way, we're going to be checking much more. So whatever you're doing heads up, you're doing more nittiness, more checking when you're multi-way. So yeah, if I had ace, king, and diamonds here, I might just check. Yeah, I might just check, and then if this player bets and this player calls, I'll probably fold. If this player bets and this player folds, I might just call once and then fold on turns. But yeah, ace of clubs is really what's driving my c-bet here, because I know I'm going to be able to barrel on more turn cards. So on this card, I'm only betting here if I'm willing to fire off a bunch of blank rivers. Because the thing is, if we bet here, people are going to call with stuff like 5-6, 7-8, 8-9, 7x of clubs, stuff like, yeah. So there's just a lot of those like pairs and gut shots, and maybe the 7x of club combo. 10 jack, yeah, that's true. 10 jack. So when you have this scenario where there's a shitload of draws that are like not great made hands, but they have to continue and they have showdown, you kind of need to be willing to fire off a bunch of rivers as well. So I was going to be pretty aggressive on club rivers and just like pure blanks. That was kind of what I was thinking. This player called. And then the ace came, and I was super torn here into betting or not. Should the button be called with a gut shot? No. Like king jack, you're saying? I mean, if they have a pair and a gut shot, that would be a bit closer. So something like 8-9, 7-8, 5-6. Yeah, 7-8. That's a really tough one. So I sized up very big. So my guess would be they need to fold versus my sizing. It really sucks that you're worried about this player behind still. You know what? I think with 8-9 and 7-8 specifically, you block the straight that you're worried about this player having. So I would probably call 7-8, 8-9 here, like read based on what my read is on this player's range. Like if I have reason to believe this player is pretty light here or weak or very aggressive, I think I might hero with the 7-8, 8-9 still. So I think that hand's very close. Is this a spot where we could overbet turn? I don't think overbetting in multi-way pots is really much of a thing. It's possible it is, but I don't really see it. I haven't really studied it. I in general, I don't think it's a play you need to have in your arsenal. It's overbetting is mostly happen in one scenario. It's when you're up against the big blind and there's a lot of draws and the turn came a blank for that player. If you guys remember, anyone who needs a refresher on that, if you go back and watch the double barreling lesson that's in the library, I covered the overbetting there. The other scenario where you will do some overbetting is when the flop goes check, check, and the other player caps their range. Then you could do a lot of overbetting into them. But yeah, I wouldn't do it here, no. And again, it's just something I haven't really looked into, so I could be off there, but I can't even recall a time I've seen anyone in any of my games overbet on a multi-way pot. So in this river spot, my guess is GTO wise, you're supposed to continue betting, but in reality, you just need to ask yourself, how light is this player going to call? Is this player ever going to call just a queen? Is this player going to hero call with, 7x with a club sometimes? Is this player ever continuing with 8-9 here? And This was that that guy from the pocket eights hand, the 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 guy who'd won WPT Jacksonville, and I felt like he was kind of sick of me, like just sick of me, kind of getting away with a lot of bluffs and stuff like that. So I was really torn, and I felt like because the club draw missed and 10 Jack missed, that I have more bluffs in my range, and that I need to widen my value range here because I did feel like he might hero call me light enough here. So I decided to go with it. You don't want to bet too big here when you're value betting this thin. Now, this is where I have MW in my head here. I think it was MW. It's going to say, if we bet small, doesn't it look weak? And can our opponent jam on us, or something like that? I'll just balance, right? I'm going to have ace queen here sometimes. I'm going to have aces here sometimes. I'm going to have queens here sometimes. And you could bet small with some of those hands, right? Maybe even smaller than this. Maybe even like, like 14K or something like that. But yeah, I just did decide to bet, and he called pretty quickly. He had ace nine. So really loose call on the turn by him. But yeah, like I said, he was getting kind of sick of me. So it made sense that he decided to hero me light. What do I think about his call? It's definitely not the hand you want to hero call light with, because you have so many better hands to call with. 5-6, 6-7, 7-8, 8-9, 7x of clubs, all the queens. So like all those hands you just named are better than this one. So I generally would fold his ace nine, but hey, I have times where I just have a really strong read, and even though I'm not supposed to call, I still go ahead and make the call. So yeah. Okay. Okay, so MW said, should he have led the river or check raised the river? So a big mistake I see people make is just because they hit a hand, they lead. So you should never lead based on what you have. You should lead based on your range and what your range has on this card, right? So does this player's range have many aces in them? Not really, right? Really very, 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 very few. Pretty much none other than ace nine. Because ace queen, you probably would have squeezed pre-flop or check raised the flop. So you really don't have any aces in your range. So this ace is a pure blank for this player. It would make sense to lead if a 9 came or a 7 came or a 5 came. Then this player can do some leading, because I don't really have those cards in my range and this player does. So those would be the only cards I would consider leading. Or if some straight draw hit, then possibly this player could do some leading. Does that make sense? Any questions on that before we go to the next hand? MW says, I was thinking from the perspective that if you bet flop and turn into two players, you might be really strong. King, queen. Okay, so you're thinking more that, this player is very strong, so we're going to get called a lot, so we should lead. That's kind of what you're saying, MW. So that's definitely not the way you want to think about it. I'm just trying to think the right way to explain it. So it's true that the ace might shut me down, but in general, like we just talked about, this player basically has almost no aces in their range, and I have some. Right? I could have been bluffing with ace 10, ace 6, ace 8, a hand like I did have, right? So you're right that the ace could shut me down, but the ace also could induce me to bluff, right? Maybe I have king jack and 10 jack and 5-6, and I decide to bluff because the ace came, right? So it goes both ways. The ace might shut me down sometimes, and the ace might induce me to bluff sometimes. Or I might just have the ace, and I'm going to bet, and you can maybe get a check raise in. Should the player have check raised? I mean, I could have a set. I don't know if I would go this size with a set. I guess it depends which one. I could have ace queen, but you're blocking that. Yeah, I'm not sure. Probably not for your tournament life and in the main in such a soft tournament. I think the call is probably fine. Do I call ace king if he check shoves? I would call some people, and I would fold versus a lot of people. I would ask myself, is this player capable of jamming 5-6? Is this player capable of jamming 7-8, 6-7? And I would probably decide based on some of those things. But yeah, that's a pretty sick play here for you to check raise here, with some of those hands we just talked about. You know, 5-6. Like you want to be blocking the straight, you want to be blocking the set, you want to be blocking the two pairs and that kind of thing. My two pairs are going to be stuff like 9-7 suited, queen 9 suited, ace queen, and ace 9. So those are the stuffs you want to block if you're going to take a line like that. Okay, let's go on to next hand. Yeah, and yeah, if you have the ace 9, you're thinking about jamming there, you got to ask yourself, you know, is this player going to call? You know, does my image look, you know, you have to think like, what does my image look like? Is this player ever going to think I'm bluffing? If I'm never going to think you're bluffing, then you should be value jamming less with ace 9, and you should be bluffing more with stuff like 7-8. Okay, so heads up here versus the under the gun player. So player did a big C bet here. I decided to check raise here. I think calling is totally fine as well. But the reason why I check raised is kind of the same reason why I check raised the Jack 10 with the club. And why did we check raise that Jack 10 with the club? What was the fear? What was the fear of just calling in that spot? And that might relate to this one. Getting blown off equity, exactly. That's one reason. And the other benefit is we get to fold our opponent off equity. Yeah, we're going to face a big bet in a lot of turns. Generally, we should be check raising more when our opponent C bets small, and we should be check raising less when our opponent C bets big. So I would be a little bit more likely to do this against a 1K bet, but it doesn't mean we're never betting. We're never check raising, even when they bet big. We're still going to do it sometimes. I really did like that we had a 8 of spades in our hand. You know, blocking some backdoor flush draw stuff makes it a little bit easier to barrel off in case the spade comes, and you know, 8-9, the straight gets there and stuff like that. So we check raised, and the beauty is sometimes you get a card like this, and it's nice that you have some 7s in your range. Okay, so Ike says, this check raise sometimes frees the villain, and can we get to the river more cheaply? I mean, I think people do check a lot after you check raise, but yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't know. I don't have a great answer for that one. It feels weird bloating the pot to get to the river. I mean, that's a thing in position in like limit games where you raise the turn so that you could check back. But I don't think here it applies since you're out of position. So I think a trap is reasonable to check. But I thought what makes more sense than checking is to bet small, to bet 1/3 here. Yeah, our opponent doesn't have nearly as many 7s as we do. So I like to continue betting here. And the beauty of this is, what does our opponent's continuing range look like here? And this is the really important part, that you need to be able to visualize this range in your head. So can you guys type out what are the hands he's continuing with? Like write out the combos. Is it ace queen plus? Is it pocket eights plus? Is it pocket twos plus? Write out a complete range, because that's what should be going on in your head right now. After you check raise, you need to be seeing the matrix a bit. Yeah, so see the way MW did it? That's kind of how you want to do it. You want to write out, and you don't need to write jacks, queens, kings, aces. You could just write jacks plus or tens plus to make it easy. So ace 10. So ace 10 is really vague, Matthew, right? Is he calling ace 10 of hearts here? Probably not. So, ace 10 suited, backdoor flush draws. So I guess how I would answer my question here is I would probably say 6x, 7x, let's say any pair on the board, 9-8 suited, 10-9 suited, suited broadways, and ace 8 suited plus with backdoor flush draw, 8-8 plus, something like that. That's how I'm thinking about it in my head. Or you could type it out more manually, like some of you did. Yeah, so now that he called, think about his range, right? It's so much like ace king of diamonds, ace queen of clubs, ace 10 of clubs, ace 8 of clubs, ace 9 of diamonds, right? Those are all the hands that it's just so easy to get him off now because he didn't improve. So we could just do it. So like, let's say we had 5-4 here. Let's say we had 5-8 suited here. Let's say we had 9-10. Let's say we had 8. Maybe we have queen 10 or something like that, right? We can just do a small little bet and get all those hands to fold. And sometimes we're going to have 8-9. Sometimes we're going to turn spades, and we get a nice little cheap. We get to see the river nice and cheap here. And our opponent is just handcuffed because they have no sevens. And if they want to, this is, again, this is where MW, remember you said if we bet, or no, it wasn't MW. Sorry. It's Carey, right? I think it was Carey who was saying if we bet small, it doesn't look weak, right? But we're balanced, right? So that's how we get away with the 5-4 small bets and all those kind of things. He folded pretty quickly. He probably just had like king, queen of diamonds or something like that. Okay, we're going on to the next hand. So again, we have an entire 2-hour lesson on this topic, check raising from the big blind. It's in the library. Check it out. It's one of the more powerful lessons for sure. All right, what are we doing here? Calling, folding, or squeezing? If you're squeezing, say the size. All right, we're seeing a lot more squeezes than we did before. Yeah, I definitely like squeezing here. Make sure you guys aren't just saying this and you're actually doing it in game. Remember, I know it's scary to play big pots and to bust out early, but it's either a slow bleed. If you don't do this, it's a slow bleed. Playing four-way sucks. So what did I do? I went, what is that? I went pretty big. Yeah, I went like 5.5, 5.2x or so. We're super deep here, right? We're 130 bigs deep about. So we got called by 2 players. We're ideally just want to get called by 1 player is what we're aiming for, but obviously it depends what they have. What do you guys want to do here in this spot? Checking or betting, and if you're betting, what size do you want to bet? Those of you who aren't engaging in the chat because you're not sure and you don't want to say something wrong or you're not confident in your game, just try. Just try. Everyone's answers are all over the places. No one's judging anyone. And the more you say stuff that's wrong, the more you're going to learn. It's really easy to like sit back and be like, oh yeah, I know that. Like, yeah, I would have done that. But you'll notice when you actually have to write out the answer first, it's not as consistent. And it's good. It's good to be wrong. That's how you're going to learn. So I highly encourage you to get on there and put yourself out there. So we have some check calls. We have some check raise. We have some bet 60%, bet half, bet 1/3. So I'll bet small, bet small, bet small. Okay. So my bet was a mistake. I bet small. Well, I guess it was a little bit of an exploitative play because of the players that were in the pot. But the GTO answer would be that you normally against normal players playing well, you should be checking a lot here. And when you do bet, you should bet big. That's kind of the GTO answer. So why are we betting small and betting big? So this is not a board where we're just going to go bet everything. We're going to be probably checking ace king a lot, checking ace queen. I'd be more likely to bet ace jack and ace 9 and ace 8 suited because we have more draws with that. We get better hands to fold. Whereas with ace king, you rather just let it get checked around so that you and ace jack both hit an ace. Whereas with ace jack, you're trying to bet and get ace queen to fold. So yeah, just betting like ace jack suited, ace 9 suited, maybe some queen jack suited, jack 9 suited if we even have that. King 9 suited, king 10 suited. Oh, obviously we're betting some of our better tens. So we're pretty polarized is what I'm getting at. Like we're not really betting nines. We're not betting eights here. We're not betting ace king. We're very polarized. So the more you're polarized, you're going to go big bet or check. So I'm happy with a check raise here, and I'm happy with a big bet here. The reason I would exploitatively go small would be it would mainly be if I think that people. I'm trying to think of any. I had a reasoning earlier where I thought betting small could have some merits. I was discussing with the player. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, no, I honestly can't think of a lot of good that comes out of betting small here. The more I think about it, I just really like the big bet. I think the small bet has the risk that this player might peel like fours here. This player could peel like ace queen with a heart here. This player could peel ace jack of diamonds. Whereas if we just go big, I think we kick those hands out. Let me see what's going on in the chat here. So Ike says, why does the solver want to be polarized here? Because this scenario sucks for us. We don't have a huge range advantage here. I mean, this nails everyone. If this was king deuce deuce, then a solver would say, bet everything. Right? Bet eights, bet sevens, bet nines, bet ace 10 suited, bet everything. Because the board just favors us a lot, and they don't really have much. We have a huge range advantage on king deuce deuce. That's not the case here. Another reason for betting big here is the turn. It's a very dynamic board, which means the turn is going to shift equities a lot. So even if you have a hand like aces, there's a lot of turn cards where aces is not so happy anymore, right? A 6, a jack, a 9, a heart. All these are very scary cards. There's a lot of scary cards there. So that's another reason why we bet big is you want to get the money in while you have, the whatever advantage you do have. Yeah, you have a polarized value range and it's a dynamic board. So yeah, I think betting big here and check raising will be good. I don't like my bet size. So the jack came here. So obviously 8-9 got there, but that's literally just 4 combos out of all the combos the player has, right? We can't just be paranoid of that. Of course, there's sets out there too that beat us, but if they have a setter 8-9, that's whatever. We're gonna have to lose this pot, and we're probably gonna go broke. So when there's nothing you can do about it, you should just ignore it and focus on how do we max value here. So I'm thinking more, how do I get a peel out of 7-8 and 5-6 and pocket 8s and 9s? They could have a diamond draw. They might peel with a 10 one more time. So a lot of people are saying 1.5x pot, 2/3 pot, bet 18K. What number is this? So I really liked going smaller here. I went with a 17K bet, and my logic in here is just thinking, what are we targeting, right? So pick a range of the opponent's hands that you want to make the perfect bet size, the bet size that makes your opponent indifferent with a certain group of hands. So here, what are we targeting, right? We're targeting, we want a 10 to be indifferent. We want 7-8, 5-6, all those type of hands to be very, or like pocket 8s. Well, all those hands, we want to figure out what's the price we can bet that's going to make all those indifferent. And also, we want to think about leaving enough back on the river so that we're deep enough to still bluff. If I didn't, that's a great question, Carol. If I didn't have a flush draw, would I still bet small? Maybe not, to be honest. I don't know if that's the right GTO thing, but I would feel a little more vulnerable, and I would feel like I need more protection. So yeah, I might go. I could see myself going a little bit bigger if I didn't have a flush draw. It's a good question. But yeah, here I really want to keep in all those gut shots and hope that they hit their straight and I hit the flush, or they hit 2 pair and I hit the flush. So, and another thing here is I could have ace queen and ace king that I see bet with like the ace of hearts or something like that, and those are hands that also might want to bet that size. So I'm like giving myself a cheap river card when I have ace king, ace queen. But I'm also trapping my opponent when I have something like pocket jacks, something like what I do have. So again, I'm always pretty balanced there. 4 came, not much to think about here. We jammed and opponent tanked forever. He folded. He asked me if I can see my cards. I said $20 a card. He instantly threw out $20 on the table and said, I'll see them both. And then he took the 20 back and said, oh, I need that for the valet. And he gave me his phone to send, so I could send myself PayPal. So I didn't get paid, but I got $40 out of it. It was after he folded. He asked to see the hand. Hey, I got to get something out of it. I didn't cash the main, unfortunately. I busted on day 3. Okay. This looks like a typo on the sizing. I 3-bet here. This is hand number 37. Let me double check the text here. Hand number 37. What is that? This is from day 2. I think we jumped ahead somehow. Okay, day 2, hand number 4. So we're on to day 2 now. So yeah, I ended day 1 with a pretty good stack, 303K. And we're on to day 2. Sorry, I'm just trying to find day 2 on the document. This is where I'm at right now. Notice how I'm writing some of these solves and outputs in here. These are just for myself. These aren't even hands that we're going through some of these hands. This is how you guys should consider studying as well. So every session I play live, I write out, I don't normally write out every hand. I just write out the hands that I have issues with. And then at the end of the week, I go and, I'll double check a chart. I'll run on a pile solver. I know most of you probably aren't using pile solvers, but you could talk to friends, talk to peers, get in a Discord group, look at pre-flop ranges, and then write out the answers, write out the takeaways, summarize them, stuff like that. That's a really important study routine. The 3 things you need to be doing if you want to win at poker is document your hands, review them on your own, get in a group of people that are equal or better skill level than you. And the third is watch some sort of learning content, coming to sessions like this, signing up to watch training videos, doing something like that that's going to further your knowledge. If you keep doing those 3 things throughout the year, you're going to be a good player. Yeah, the cold 4-bet hand. So let's jump into this. So this was kind of the background of what happened before this hand. This player here was talking to his friend earlier, and I saw him kind of pointing at me and his friend kind of nodding, and then also kind of pointing at this player. And I think they were looking at like Hendon Mob or like something like that. That was kind of my assumption. So I think they were just kind of like recognizing like who the stronger players at the table were, and this was definitely the other player with like that seemed like a good player. So last orbit, this player beat me out of a big pot and just kind of had a bigger stack. I think this player had like 150 bigs now, and I just kind of saw this guy kind of eyeballing his stack since then, and this player had opened like 2 hands since he won a big hand. So it just kind of looked like this player was starting to open up a lot. And I kind of thought to that like conversation, it looked like this guy was happening, like eyeballing who the good players are. And now he's, conveniently 3-betting him. And I just decided to go for it. I also felt like this player was playing pretty careful post flop. It did seem like he was very concerned about not, bloating pots. I also felt like players behind me weren't going to be 4-betting ace queen suited, king queen suited, some of these hands they should be doing. So it was just like purely exploitative. I felt like this player didn't really want to get into pots with me. That was kind of my vibe. I was kind of starting to run over the table. But keep in mind, this is I haven't done this in an entire WSOP tournament like all summer. This was very unique to the main event and the atmosphere and the way people were playing. So this is definitely like a don't try this at home scenario. I don't advise you 4-bet this hand. I'm just being honest of what my logic was in this spot. Could this been a previous spot? No, I mean, of course, I am capable of tilting and get off my game, but I was super focused. I felt fine. I just literally thought it was a good spot, and I thought the guy was light. But generally, you want to be having stuff like king jack suited, king queen suited, ace jack suited, ace 10 suited, stuff like that. It was just very, very read based and very assuming people are going to overfold. Okay, let's go to next hand. There's not a lot of tournaments that I would be 4-betting Jack 5 suited in. I mean, honestly, the main event's probably the only one. I'll do some. Usually my exploitative four bets are like I'm taking a normal four bet range and I'm widening it a little bit to like ace nine suited or something like that. But I'm usually not doing something like that. I mean, having like, doing an exploitative three bet with like 7-8 suited would also be a lot better, because if it gets flatted, it's going to play better post flop. But again, I just felt like people were playing so scared and just like avoiding getting into these big pots. Like if he called there, we're basically playing for stacks after like two bets. Um, yeah, that was quite a bit of pips. I mean, and even given my read and stuff, like I'm totally open to the idea that that's not a good play. Still, it's very risky. So I don't know. I like to go with kind of some of my reads sometimes, and that's just a part of my game. And again, I don't necessarily recommend it. It's just me kind of playing with the abilities that I have and kind of the game flow of trying to run over the table. But it's a very slippery slope. I get a lot of students who come and try to play like that, but they don't really have strong fundamentals. They're not great post flop. There's a ton of other work they haven't done, and it's really easy to try to play like that because it's fun. But again, it's like if you haven't done the work to really understand the game on a deeper level, you probably shouldn't be doing stuff like that. When I'm saying it's a once in a blue moon thing, anyways. Yeah. Okay, so what happened here? So we opened, big blind called, and we got check raise super tiny. This was an older recreational, an older dude, maybe 50s or 60s. Small check raise. What do you guys want to do here? I'd say my normal check raise size would probably be, I mean, it's kind of small, but I would probably check raise like 4,300 or so. It's not that small. You should be check raising like 2.5x in a lot of these spots. So some people says he has the nuts if he's an old wreck. See, this is why a bunch of you guys should be check raising like crazy. So let's ignore his check raise size for a second. Let's just, because honestly, he's not that far from 2.5. So let's say he made it 4,300. You should be folding your overs with no backdoor flush draws, and you should be peeling your overs with backdoor flush draws. That's all you peel. Yeah, no backdoors, easy fold. Yeah, I mean, he's probably got something like deuces, threes. He should be check raising ace nine and some other 9x, but he's probably not. He could have some straight flush draw type stuff. I mean, honestly, he probably just had the nuts. Or possibly kings or queens he could have. This guy just had never really done anything. But either way, let's say this guy's super capable. Let's say this is a reg. Let's say this is a pro. I'm probably still just folding. Your standard continue should be, I mean, maybe because he went this small, I might peel versus a reg, but let's say the reg goes like 4,300, 4,400. I'm just folding. I have an entire lesson on this exact situation of how to continue versus check raising. Yeah, so if you feel like you're unsure on some of these spots, I do see, even at the WSB, I saw a lot of people calling like king jack of clubs here versus this check raise, and those are all folds. Again, you should only be calling king jack of hearts, king jack offsuit with the diamond, and those type of cards. Yeah, he could definitely have overpairs. A lot of people live just have no three bet range here. Like early position versus big blind, no, like they don't three bet aces, they don't three bet ace king. You absolutely should, but I'm just saying what I see. Especially a lot of non-pros and even some like mid-stake pros that are just scared to play big pots. What they do is they overvalue their tournament life, and keeping the pots small, so they miss out on a lot of value. Queen Jack here, we opened. I think most of you will get this. This is this is like a check range spot. Let's see. Yeah, this is a pretty check range spot. I checked here and I was wondering if I should have bluffed here because we have the club in our hand and we can get some king highs and ace highs to fold. So that's why I marked this spot for myself to review. And I have not gotten the chance to run it yet. Actually, let me check if it's in the doc. Yeah, it's not in the doc. So yeah, I'm going to run this spot later. That's what I was checking, that should I be betting here because I have the club in my hand and I can get ace highs and king highs to fold. And then my next question was, if I bet here, do I ever bet on non-clubs again on the river? I finally stabbed in the river. My other question was, how big do I need to bluff on the river once I get to this point? I think we definitely need to bluff. We just have no showdown and opponents cap their range. We could get them off some ace highs, king highs. I just don't know if I should be betting like 2K here or bigger. So I bet and call with threes. But to be honest, I don't know that I really expected him to fold threes. I'm really targeting aces and ace highs and king highs. But again, I'm not sure. So that's why I marked this spot for myself to review. I don't like c betting. I would say this is probably a check range spot out of position on this nasty of a board. Maybe there's some betting. There could be some betting possibly, but not much at least, I would guess. Yeah. Yeah, I think the turn bet would have been good. That would have, yeah. But I will run that, and then whenever I get to that, I will probably post it in that doc. Open fives under the gun. This is hand number 19. I played on day 2. So here I went with the big C bet. I should have quizzed you guys. I still don't see many people doing big C bets here from early position. Only the people studying are doing them. Anybody know why we're betting big here? And I want to take a stab on it. Yeah, Craig, the doc has pile stuff for that hand, but it was the turn spot wasn't run for the right spot. So I don't think the turn spot's on there that I'm looking for. Okay, so range advantage, just to see where you're at in the hand, to give your fives more protection. Yeah, it's the range advantage and the give us more protection, and we have a huge range advantage. This isn't the exact scenario because there's a flush draw, but it's the same stack size and positions, and you can see it's mostly doing a lot of bigs. So when you're under the gun facing the big blind and 2 Broadway cards come, you really get to attack. So here's what happens if we bet small. They're going to peel with their like 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, and 9s that have a club in it. Whereas when we bet big, we just get all those better hands that are dominating us to fold. We get a bunch of these backdoor flush draw type hands that might float or check raise. We get them out of there as well. So just a lot of good things happen with that big bet. They're just super handcuffed. They even need to start folding some of their crappier jacks. You know, with the small bet, they're calling a lot more. So you're just folding out equity. Another thing I want to point out is when we bet big here, 8-9 folds too. 8-9 pure fold. Right, so what happens if you bet small? 8-9 is going to peel or check raise, and then the turn's going to go check, and then 8-9 is going to bluff you on the river, and you get denied off equity. So just like our 10 jack hand where we check raised, it's about equity denial so that they don't deny you off equity when you have these kind of marginal holdings. On to the next spot. Any questions on that? Sorry, yeah. When I say big bet, I'm mostly referring to like approximately 66%. When I say small bet, I'm referring to approximately 33%. But if it's a big 3-bet pot or 4-bet pot, then my small bet's going to go from 33% all the way down to like 25 or even 20%. Or for a really deep stack, my big bet might be 70%, 75%. So I kind of have like two nodes in my head, big bet, small bet, and I might adjust those based on stack size and some factors. Carol said, would I barrel big if the turn is a big card? That's a good question. Let me see. Let me see if I have this exact hand real quick. Middle position. If not, we'll look at the solve I do have. And as I'm pulling it up, the answer is most likely to be that we barrel big on blinks, is I'm guessing. Okay, so we're gonna go with this flush draw, this queen jack 3 with a flush draw. So we bet big with pocket fives, right? They call most their jacks, all their queens, flush draws, 9-10, king 10 probably, right? So I would guess that we want to bet big on blanks. So like 4, 5, 6, 2, 4, 5, 6, and even a 3 is kind of a blank, right? Because they're not calling many of their threes once we bet this big. They're folding ace-3, they're folding 3-4, all these things. So let's see what happens on a 4. So on a 4, we're betting huge. We're over betting 17 big blinds into a pot of 14. We could look at a bunch of different runouts to see what cards we do bigger betting on. So notice it's actually the opposite, Carol. We're betting big on these small cards, not as much. We're doing some big betting on the big cards, but in general, we're just doing more overall betting in general on these small cards. So are we checking on a big turn card? Well, we're doing more checking with our range, but there is still some betting, right? If you look at this red, it looks like on the face card it's betting about 30% of the time and checking the rest. Do you know why that is, Carol? Do you want to take a stab at it? Why are we betting so big on these cards? It's okay if you get it wrong. Just try your best to guess. Why are we overbetting when a 5 comes and or it's not a 5, that's a set, but when a 6 comes and when a 3 comes, stuff like that. To deny equity. Okay, so to deny equity from what type of hands? So to scare off weaker hands, that's a little bit vague. There's combos, there's certain hands we're targeting, and that's what I want you guys to talk about right now. Draws. Okay, so something I always give my students shit for every session is when they give vague answers. I'm going to give you guys shit. It's really, really, really important that you mention the combos, right? Saying draws is a really like lazy thinking. And what I want you to say, what I want you to write out is 9-10, king 10, king 9. I want you to write that out, right? When you're answering, right? And the reason it's so important to write that out and not just say draws is we're going to get to that. 9, king 10. Right. Okay. So I just wrote it out. King 10, 9-10, that, Jack X. Because, and Carol, I'm not giving you shit. It's in general. This is just like a preach I try to give to my students because I really want you guys to start, putting the ranges out there and really challenging yourself to think a little deeper. Because on the turn, when we're trying to figure out what cards we want to barrel with, what card should we bluff with on the turn? We want to unblock their folds. And that's why it's so important that you list out what I just wrote out in the chat, 9-10, king 9, king 10. Because notice with ace 9, we're not bluffing, right? Look at that. Ace 9 is not doing it. When we have ace 10, it's not doing it. When we have ace eight, it's doing it a bit, but it's doing it way more when we have these cards, right? These lower cards, these fives, right? Because we don't want to block their folds. It is doing it with king 10, but that's a little different. It's just because we have so much equity with that hand. But in general, that trend that we prefer, we prefer ace 5 and ace 4 and ace 3 to bluff with than we do ace 9. We prefer ace 7 than we do ace 9. That's the thing I want you to pick up on here. And when we bet huge, yeah, we fold out 9-10, we fold out king 10, we fold out a bunch of jacks, and they're supposed to hero call down with their queens. And they're supposed to hero call with some of their jacks, especially their jacks that have an overcard, like king jack. So notice they're folding stuff like jack 7, but they're calling stuff like king jack because they have a chance of hitting that overcard still. So Raymond, we want to unblock their folds, right? So looking at this, what would you say is the majority of their folds? Like, where are you seeing the most amount of blue? Like, right, where are you seeing the most amount of blue? It's kind of in this range here, right? They have a lot of combos. Well, okay, remember there's a lot more combos of offsuit hands than suited hands, right? So they have a lot of these 9-10 combos. 9-10, 9-10 suited, and then they have a bunch of jack X. I don't know why these are in there. Yeah. So yeah, so if we're trying to get them to fold 9-10, and we're trying to get them to fold king 10, and we're trying to get them to fold king 9, then we don't want the 9 and we don't want the 10 in our hand. Because if we have a 9 and we have a 10 in our hand, then they're less likely to have 9-10, and they're less likely to have king 9, and they're more likely to have something like a queen. That's what I mean by that, Raymond. Yep. And if you want to go deeper on that, go to this lesson here, this double barrel lesson, double barrel opportunities. It's like a whole 2 hours in that, and then calling downwards double barrel. So it shows the response. So that will get you ramped up on that topic. Where did the hand go? We're done with this. So they folded. Yep. Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, and if something didn't make sense, then it makes sense, and it helps when you guys tell me that you understand it now. Then I know I can move on, or that I don't need to explain it a different way, and so on. Okay. What do you guys want to do here? Are you betting? Are you checking? And what size are you betting? Bet small, 1/4, check. Why do you want to check, Carrie? Why do you want to check, Raymond? What would be your reasoning? Anyone who said check, if you want to share the reasoning you like checking here. MW says, because the range favors the big blind. Because I missed. Okay, so Carrie, you don't want to think about you want to think about your range versus their range. Right? Our range is a bunch of strong hands. Their range is a bunch of weak hands. So our range is dominating them. Okay, so Carrie says that nails his range. And why does it nail his range? Because the 7 or because the deuce, the 2 deuces. So I think what you're implying is that he has a nut advantage because he has a lot of deuces. Is that kind of what you're getting at here? Okay, so let's look. Does he have a lot of deuces? So versus open raise. Middle position, no big blind versus middle position. Let's look a little shallower. Let's look 60 big steep. And I just want to make a point here that I think will be a little easier if it's visual. So villain opens middle position and we're in the big blind. Let's just look at a 60 big blind thing. Okay. So this is opponent's calling range, right? This is a villain's calling range. Now you got to remember these offsuit combos are 12 combos and these are only 4 combos. You know what I mean by that? Right? There's only for deuce 3 suited there's only 4 combos. For deuce 3 offsuit there's 12 combos. So how many deuces do they have in their range? Look at this. It's all blue. They're folding a bunch of deuces. Threes, it's mostly blue. They're calling a little bit more. Fours, okay, now they're calling a little bit more. Fives, they're calling more. Six, they're calling more. Sevens, they're calling more. Eights, they're almost calling all of them. So MW just said, I remember from C betting versus the big blind class that it's a heavy check when it's 8-8 through deuce because the big blind has a nut advantage. That's not true. It's 4-4 through 8-8. So when the flop is 8-8 through 4 and it's paired, then the big blind has a big nut advantage because they have a way more 4x, 5x, 6x, 7x, and 8x than us. But if we look at that range, we see why we're a lot more scared about 8s and 7s and 6s and 5s and even 4s than we are 3s and deuces. They don't really have any 3s and deuces. 3s and 2s sometimes. Well, no, it's all they barely have any deuces and 3s. I mean, look at what percentage of their hands have a deuce or a 3 in it right now we're looking at a pair of deuces, right? What percentage of this has a deuce in it? Right? I don't know what that percentage is. It's super low. It's like 2-3%. So it's like we don't worry about they have barely any, right? But if you look at how many 7s and 8s they have, it's a much larger percentage. So you would worry about them having those, right? So I know some of you who mentioned that are members here, so you should go back and watch the C betting versus the big blind class, and just do some refinement on that. And it's 8s through 4s that you're worried about. Eddie B was my answer, right? So Eddie says he has a lot of mid pocket pairs here as well that we'll continue with. Sure, he has some mid pocket pairs, but that's not, remember these mid pocket pairs, that's not very many combos compared to all this garbage that he has that he's just going to fold. So sure, he has some pocket pairs, but that's not very representative of his range. Yeah, majority of hands is just garbage that missed. Here, let's pull something up here. Deuce, paired boards. I don't have a deuce board. I don't have a deuce board, so okay. Yeah, let's move on from that, just because a lot of the students here I know have already seen that lesson. So for anyone who wants to learn more about that, just go ahead and check out the one you want to check out here is the C betting versus the big blind. It's one of the earlier lessons that we did. It's going to be towards the bottom. It's this one, special single raise pots, C betting versus the big blind. By the end of that lesson, you'll know exactly what boards favor you, what boards favor your opponent, when they have a net advantage, is how to think about it. It will have you seal tight on that. So we're betting range here on this board, and we get check raised. What do you guys want to do here versus the check raise? Yeah, we're betting here just to get a bunch of auto folds, like Kyle said. Yep. Okay. Fold. Okay, good. So you guys got this, and we just talked about this earlier that, we'd be calling here with king jack of hearts, king jack of diamonds, king jack of spades. What if this was ace jack? Then what would we do? Carol wants to call ace jack. Peel. What if it was ace 9? Yeah, I do like peeling the ace jack. Fold. Mix. Okay. Yeah, you guys got the right idea. Yeah, if we get check raise here and we have ace king, ace queen, we're definitely calling. Ace jack, ace 10, get a little mixing, and ace 9, ace 8 probably just folding. What if you had ace 4 of clubs and ace 5 of clubs? I meant like ace 9 offsuit. But yeah, let's say you have ace 4, with no backdoor flush draw, ace 5 and no backdoor flush draw. Yeah, that one's a little bit closer. So I mainly just want to make the point that ace 5, ace 4 is definitely better than like ace 8. I probably would fold ace 4, ace 5 because it's blocking a lot of their bluffs too, but it's much closer is what I want to get at. We're definitely calling ace 4, ace 5 with a backdoor flush draw. But yeah, easy fold here. I saw a lot of people peeling this in the WSOP, not just the main, but throughout the WSOP. Seems like it's a common mistake that we're making. What do you want to do here? Fold, call, squeeze. Okay, Carol says squeeze with ace 10 suited. What about with this one? So we have some mixing fold, we have some calling, we have some squeezing. Okay, so calling would be, I'd say, a big mistake here. You definitely don't want to call here. The deeper stacked you are, the bigger the reverse implied odds. So we're pretty deep here. And when you're deep stacked, if these players have ace jack, ace queen, ace king, and you hit an ace or two aces, like you're dead, right? You might lose 75 big blinds. That's disastrous. So I might not even call this heads up. Let's say this player didn't call. I would still probably fold here, 75 bigs deep. But if we were 30 bigs, I would probably peel. So I'm a heads up here. I'm calling 30 bigs, but folding 75 bigs. Raquel, do you want to give a stab at answering why I'm calling here at 30 bigs heads up, but not at 75 bigs? Why would I call here with 30 bigs at ace 10 off, but not at 75 bigs? I'll carry on, but you could go ahead and type out your answer if you need some more time to think. Yeah, so this is standard. So whatever our ranges are heads up, as soon as someone calls here, it's just going to be even tighter. So if it was already a fold heads up, then multi-way it's going to be even more of a fold. Yeah, and what Carol said is correct. It's easier to get it in with 30 bigs. We can't get blown off. Yeah, so at deep SPRs, big cards with bad kickers are really troublesome, whereas at lower SPRs, it's not as big of a deal. Again, offsuits don't play well multi-way either. So this is an easy fold. Here, I made an exploitative squeeze because these players were, because it was the main event and just people were just playing so scared. There's a lot of hands that this player is supposed to 3-bet with that he's just flatting with. So do you remember earlier how I was 3-betting like 8s and 7s a little bit here and some king jack suited and 10 jack suited and queen jack suited to kick all these players out? That's why I'm 3-betting, because if you don't, good players are going to do this and put you in the annoying spot. And this player just shouldn't really be doing a lot of flatting here. Maybe some for sure. I mean, we're pretty deep, but generally people peel too much and get themselves into an annoying spot. So we made an exploitative squeeze. I agree that ace-10 suited would be much closer. Let me actually show you guys what the squeeze range looks like here. It looks something like this. These green hands. This is the general squeeze range here. So it's doing it with like king 10 suited, king jack suited, queen jack suited, king queen off. It doesn't really feel like it's strong enough, but again, this is an exploitative one I'd do if I thought I'm up against weaker players. Ace queen off. So squeezing is a little. So in a lot of the 3-bet lessons, I've taught you guys that you should always know if you're 3-betting for value or as a bluff. In squeeze spots, it gets a little bit cloudy. Like for example, ace queen, are you 3-betting as a value or bluff? It's kind of neither. Right? It's kind of like you're doing it for value, but it's almost like you're kind of doing it just to clear out equity, to get heads up, because your hand doesn't play well multi-way, and a little bit to kind of see where you're at. That logic is a little bit okay in squeeze scenarios. In heads up pots, I don't like that see where you're at logic, but in squeeze spots, it's a little more okay. But it's really just because you don't like playing multi-way. You want to avoid it. And this is not just 3 ways here. It's if you call, it's going to go 4 ways, 5 ways, and so on. Okay, what do you guys want to do here? Bet 30. We have a check. Bet 9K. Bet big. Raymond, why do you like the big bet here? Or Raymond and Jeremy? 3x. Raquel, what do you mean by 3x exactly? You mean like 3... Deny equity. Okay, got it. And what are you trying to deny equity from, Jeremy? What type of hands? 3 times the pot. So the pot here is 27 big blinds, and we only have 67 big blinds. So you never need to c-bet more than the pot. You generally always c-betting, either 1/3 or 2/3 of the pot. But if you guys remember, in the squeeze spots and the 3-bet pots, when the SPR gets really low, SPR is stack to pot ratio, right? We only have 67 bigs and there's 27 behind. So the SPR is only like 2.2. We're super shallow here. So you don't need to bet very big in these spots. You would just be betting like, I would just be betting like 20%, 25% pot here if I'm going to bet. So yeah, this pot is super bloated. So size down in these bloated pots. So Jeremy, when you're talking about denying equity from 8-9, it's just, that's not like, you're really focusing on like the exact hands that you want to deny equity from, but that's not many hands. Like you want to be able to name a lot of hands that there's a lot of equity denial that needs to be had here, when you're really concerned with betting big. Like, do you remember in the other spot where it was multi-way and it was like 10-7-5, and I was like, oh, we need to bet big to deny equity? It's because I could name off like 7-8, 8-9, 9. It's like there's so many hands to deny equity from. Here, it's just like 9-8 suited. And do they even have? Are they calling 9-8 suited? Right? This guy's not calling 9-8 suited. This guy maybe. Right? So there's not a lot of 9-8 suited in their range either. Yeah, we don't need a lot of protection here. So I'm checking here. So when you 3-bet stuff like ace-10 versus early position and they flat, what are they flatting with, right? They're flatting with stuff like ace-queen, ace-king, ace-jack suited. And so this is really like one of our worst aces. There's not a lot of value to get here. Like a lot of their hands are going to be like suited broadways and pocket pairs. So If they have pocket 8s, 9s, 10s, jacks, we're crushing them. They got 2 outs. If they have king, queen, jack suited, we're crushing them. So we're just like way ahead of their hands, or we're dominated by their aces. So I'm checking here a lot. The last thing I want to do is get check raised by like ace king or ace queen. And I'm gonna be in this spot with pocket jacks. I'm gonna be in this spot with pocket tens. I'm gonna be in this spot with pocket queens and kings. And what are you gonna do with kings, queens, and jacks here? I mean, I'm probably just checking back kings and queens. I might bluff like 9s and 10s to barrel it off, but I'm definitely checking queens and kings. So a lot of people get really scared here because they have kings and queens. It's like, well, if I check, it's just like I look so weak and they're just going to bluff me on the turn. And so I need to bet. But the reason they feel like that is because they're not squeezing enough hands like this that you can just comfortably check back. And now if they want to try to barrel me here, like I'm balanced and I got an ace. Now here, I'm still paranoid that these guys could have a better ace. And of course they could have a 6. So JD says, how much is pot control a factor here for the check? I'd say my check is a combination of pot control for when they have ace, queen, ace, jack, and to also protect my checking range. I'd say protecting my checking range is the biggest thing I'm doing here, right? Do they ever have a 6 here? The first guy, no. The second guy certainly could have some 5, 6, 6, 7 suited type stuff, but that's about it. Not a lot. So yeah, I'm not super worried about the 6. So Andres Vasquez says, but you never get to bet 2 streets here. So yeah, here, when I get to this spot, I don't think I'm ever getting 2 streets of value from worse hands here. If someone calls me twice, I think I'm probably beat. So in my head, I've already acknowledged this is a 1 street hand, which is why I'm like, all right, if I can't get 2 streets, let me turn it into a bluff catcher. Maybe I'll induce some bluffs out of 9, 10 or something like that. So yeah, I'm still, I checked the turn, also just trying to induce a bluff, you know, maybe someone's going to try to represent the ace and put me on kings or queens, right? Now I'm finally going to bet. I bet a third pot and they folded. That was it. Any questions on that spot? So on a lot of ace high boards, especially in 3-bet pots, a lot of people, you shouldn't just be betting your whole range on ace high boards in 3-bet pots. You're going to have a lot of kings, queens, and stuff, that jacks that you really need to check. And you want to put your worst aces in to check back as well so that you're balanced. Okay, let's go on to the next spot. Open jack 9 suited. This was an interesting hand. Okay, what do you guys want to do here with the jack 9 suited? I'm going to skip a quiz. This should be a relatively straightforward check here. I would maybe, so definitely in multi-way pots are almost never betting range. And also you're really never betting range when you're out of position. So if we were heads up here, cut off or, you know, late position versus button, we should be doing a lot of checking. When this player has a stronger range, we have a wide range, but multi-way we're doing even more checking. So we're checking a decent amount here. Well, you can still do it. You're not checking a ton, but I'm just saying you should be doing like, you know, your ace jack, your ace 10, your pocket queens. There's a lot of hands that want to check. Pocket 9s, 8, 9 might want to check. A hand I might bluff with here is queen 10 suited, I think, or even queen 10 off. That would be a really nice hand to bluff with because you can bet the flop and then you can barrel the turn to get a jack to fold or a better 10 and maybe a king by the river. So checks around. This player leads pretty big here. We have not only a jack, but we have a gut shot. So we're definitely calling here. And then this player bet 23 here. That's definitely a good sizing by this player. I can't say that there's like a standard, like you always call, you always fold here. But I was asking myself, what do I beat here? And this player is in the big blind. So that means they are going to have a bunch of queen X suited that they could play this way, right? They could have queen 5 of spades, queen 3, queen deuce of clubs, queen 3 of clubs. Right? So they have a bunch of queen X they could play this way. They have some 8-9, so probably the 9 is not ideal. But there's still enough other hands. We don't have a heart in our hand. If I had the 9 of hearts in my hand, I would probably just fold. But we do unblock a lot of stuff here. And I believe I had some sort of read here or something. So with queen 9, we do block the straight. So I guess the 9 could help us. We also block king jack. But they still do have a bunch of it. Well, I guess the other thing I felt like this player had seen me do like a lot of balance checking all day. So I think it's reasonable that I could have a king here. Like I could have something like king 9 suited, king 8 suited here. So when this guy went this big on the river, I was like, man, I don't think he's going to go this big with king deuce suited, king 4 suited, king 6 suited, king 7 suited. So when he goes this big, he's really narrowing the range he's repping. He's repping more like queen 9, king jack, or king 9. So yeah, if he went smaller, then he's more repping like some of those weaker kings. So because he went that big, I was like, all right, my 9 blocker becomes a lot more relevant here. Someone's asking if I had queen jack, do I fold because we block a lot of bluffs now? Yeah, I think so. I think if I have to choose between, I mean, queen 9, queen jack has some benefits of blocking the queen 9, but that's about it. Whereas jack 9 blocks king 9 as well, which is probably one of the hands he goes this sizing with. So yeah, that's what was going on in my head. Yeah, I thought he looked a little physically uncomfortable too. I wasn't really sure, but yeah, it was really his big bet sizing and the fact that I blocked the king 9 and queen 9 that really made me call. Yeah. Yeah, no, the king on the river influences me a lot for sure. But yeah, really, it was his big bet sizing, and his big bet sizing allowed me to narrow down his range and think about how valuable my blockers are now. Yeah. So 7:40. We'll probably go for another 20 minutes, and then we'll call it. And if anyone wants to jump on call and ask me any questions for 5 minutes, I'll let you guys call in. I see Carol and C. Tamer have clicked the call in button. If anyone else wants to call in and chat, you guys are welcome to. We'll do that in about 15, 20 minutes. This was just an this sizing's wrong, but this was just an example of a exploitative 3-bet that I did. Or this isn't that exploitative. This is I bet a chart would say you could 3-bet here, but ignore the sizing. Jack 10 suited here. We flatted. Yeah, the narrower. Yeah, okay. What I just reiterated the thought process there. Yep. I'm mixing 3-betting and calling here. The reason why I'm doing some 3-betting here is because we can get hands like ace 10, king jack, ace jack to fold that dominate us, which is really nice. And we kick out people from behind from doing stuff like this. So I really like 3-betting in this spot, but I've been 3-betting a lot. So I decided to chill out. This player called. What do you guys want to do here? Are we calling? Are we folding? Are we jamming? We have 1 call, 2 calls, 3, 4 folds, multi-way pot. What does that mean? What do you mean? Oh, you're saying fold because multi-way. Yep, fold. Well, suited hands play fine multi-way, but the problem here is this player's flatting range is annihilating us, right? We're so dominated against that flat range. So we're just mega dominated here. I would rather call here with 5-6 suited, 6-7 suited, maybe 7-8 suited. I might even just fold 7-8 suited. A lot of our straight draw outs are being blocked by like these guys having 10s and 9s and stuff. So I'm probably folding 7-8 suited. I'm calling here with 7-6 suited and 5-6 suited. Yeah, I'm folding this. I'm folding queen 10 suited. Probably folding king jack suited. Yeah, it's really the domination. So yeah, good job with some of you who got that. We did fold. What? Oh, I forgot to check what hand number that was. Did someone see what hand number that was by any chance? Probably hand number 28, I guess. No. King queen suited. That's probably right on the border. I might fold it too, to be honest, but I'd say that's right on the border. Do we call slightly deeper? No, I don't think so. I think deeper I'd be more likely to fold because now the reverse implied odds are getting really shitty. Anyone see what hand number that was? I lost where we were. Okay, I'm just going to pull up a random hand and see if it's one we went through or not. 28, you think? We're on day 2. There is no 28. Oh, it was 28. Does. Oh, okay, I guess we jumped around. That was a day 1 hand. Okay, so we were jumping around a little bit. Let's go to the end of day 2. Let's see if we covered these hands or not. No, I don't think we did these hands. So okay, yeah, we'll get to the end of day 2 and then we'll call it. Open pocket 3s here from early-ish. I would say you should only be opening 3s from this position if you feel really good post flop about your game. Generally, I recommend if you're not super sharp post flop, you are just generally not that advanced. You should just be folding 4s and below from these earlier spots. It's going to be really hard to play out of position. Oh, this was, I remember this hand. I'm just going to talk through this hand, my logic here. So we checked here. It got checked around. Then this player bet 10K. So this player was pretty straightforward. Not the type that's like super balanced, just kind of, kind of straightforward what he has. That was kind of how he was playing all day. So when he bet this sizing, I was like, man, I think this guy had like a set or 2 pair or 5-8 that he would be betting big because there's diamonds out there, there's club draws out there. He's gonna be like, oh shit, like I need to protect my hand. So because of that, I decided to put in a raise. And I thought that this would be pretty believable because it's pretty reasonable. I would check like aces, kings, queens, jacks. Like this is a pretty scary situation. Take it easy, Carol. Yep. So so I just thought it was pretty believable that I could represent a big hand here that is just trying to get protection. This player cold calls. So what does this player have? I mean, this player just looks like it has some sort of like 7 or 8s or maybe a pair and a straight draw or a combo draw, something like that. This player could have pocket fours, so that is definitely concerning. They cannot have 5-8. This player can have a lot of like 8-9 of clubs, 9-10 of clubs, ace high clubs. You could have some diamond draw still. 5-5. I was thinking more like 5-6 suited maybe this player has, but yeah, maybe 5-5. I mean, that would be pretty loose to call it 5-5. I would think 5-5 just folds, but yeah, I don't know. 5-5 should probably just fold. I could see 5-6 suited like hero calling here. So Tina says 7-7, and that's where most of the players, I just didn't feel like they were disciplined enough to have sets here. That would be a really good play. People who play a lot of cash games and deep stack poker would have sets here, but in generally no. And so really the thing here is just that there's so many draws. There's so many draws here, and that's really the driving factor here. So on this river, I felt like this pretty much was a blank because it didn't really form any nutted hands. I didn't think nines was necessarily gonna be calling. I think nines might have just even bet the flop if they're this guy. I don't think this guy's calling nines. I don't think anyone really has 8-10. I guess they could have 8-10 of diamonds or 8-10 of clubs, so that would be one concern. But I felt like this was relatively a blank. I do need to bluff because 9-10 of diamonds and 8-9 of diamonds and 8-9 are all in there still. So I decided to go for it with a 2/3 bet. I could have maybe went even a little bit smaller, but yeah, I really feel like when the diamond or club doesn't come, I really need to bet here. This player called and ended up having sixes. This player was a recreational, but I later, after talking to him, kind of found out that he plays like in these private cash games where they play really high stakes, like 10, 15, 20K buy-in, and they play like 300 big blinds deep. So even though he's a recreational, he was like the one player that was kind of mixing it up and like 3-betting and putting pressure on. And I think he just knows how to, play deep stat poker and to be tricky and mix it up. So he played the hand really well. And most players at the table were not balanced like that. And most players at the table would be like, oh, I got a set and there's draws out there. And there's a lot of players like, I need to get protection. And what he did was like perfect for when a player like me is in the hand that's going to attack. So he played the hand super, super well. Should villain jam? Well, I could still have sevens. There's a chance the other guy could have some 2 pairs. So I think I like the call. Am I going to call with worse? I mean, I guess I could have 4s. Yeah, I don't know. Probably if it wasn't the main event and it's tournament life and it's just a cash game, sure. But I think sevens would maybe be the bottom of what he should jam with. Okay, so 10-6 off, cutoff open. This was a good player. So player bet here, half pot. I mean, I would fold here without the spade, but with the spade, I'm definitely continuing. I could maybe do some check raising here. The big thing you need to do here is you need to consider check raising some of your kings, some of your king 8, your king 10, your king jack. Because you don't have a lot of nutted hands. You don't really have sats. All you have is really like some 2 pairs. So yeah, if you were going to raise here, you want to make sure you have some king 8, some king 10, king jack, along with your 2 pairs and stuff. So I'm mixing here, calling and raising. We turned a great card. I have a lot of 9x and queen x and even some king x that might have to fold here. So I'm just checking. Opponent bets half pot. And now the river comes a spade. So I'm no longer worried about my opponent having ace 10. We block the flush. And I'm definitely not going to fold if the player jams here. So I was asking myself, do I make more money by checking here and inducing bluffs, or do I make more money by jamming and potentially getting this player to fold a straight? And I basically didn't feel like this player was gonna shove here and like risk their tournament life. I could have a lot of flushes here. Yeah, I just didn't see him jamming and bluffing here versus me. So I just didn't see a lot of value in checking. And I thought there was more value in trying to get opponent off a 10. I would only do that because I had the spade in my hand. So I jammed, he tanked a little bit, and he folded. And I showed the 6 of diamonds, and everybody was so sure that I was bluffing. Like Poker News wrote it up, and people were like tweeting it, and like they're like, "Oh, like awesome bluff." Like even the people, even the people in my package that bought my WSOP package thought I was bluffing. So what's kind of nice is by showing the 6, it kind of like gave the table and that player the image that like, oh, I'm bluffing and I'm owning everyone, and that I got balls of steel. So it's great because it just makes people scared to play against you, and you get to take it to your advantage. So that was kind of nice to be able to do that and keep that psychological dominance over the table. So here I called. This was an older Asian lady who was playing like she was definitely playing relatively small ball. Like you could tell she was definitely valuing her tournament life. Um, so she checked here, and I think normally I might check back here a lot because I don't really want to get check raised a lot. Someone asked, do I normally show online? I show online too sometimes. I mean, I just do whatever I think's gonna tilt my opponents. And but you shouldn't show. I mean, I show very strategically. For example, if I did like an overbet on the turn and I don't want people to know what my overbet range looks like, then I'm not going to show there. There's too much info. But yeah, I'm just always gauging is the info I'm revealing about my strategy more valuable to not let them know that, or is the ability to like kind of tilt and scare players against playing against me more valuable? So for example, like I'm not going to show a bluff to like someone who's got like 10 big blinds left, unless I play with them a lot, right? But if someone to my right has like 100 bigs and we're both super deep, then yeah, I might show them a bluff because I got a lot of incentive to get them off their game. So here I might check back a lot because I really don't want to get check raised. But I think this sizing looks like it was a mistake. That shouldn't be the sizing I used. Let's see. Let me find it on the doc. Hand number 41. She check called 8,000. Okay. I think I bet a little bit smaller here. So I think I just wrote the hand a little bit wrong. But yeah, my goal here was to control the size of the pot because I didn't think she would check raise enough. So I think I bet like 6K here. I remember it was around half pot. Then she called, and now we turned the open-ended. And obviously that's a pretty scary card for a lot of the stuff she might have. So what I was thinking was she still could have like ace king, ace queen with a spade that I want to get value and protection out of. She still has aces, kings, queens that maybe I want to keep the pot small against. She might even fold some of those if it doesn't have a spade with it. So I just wanted to bet small here to kind of keep my options open and control the size of the pot. And I also felt like I get value out of like ace 5 and ace 4. Honestly, my image was like pretty crazy at this point. So I didn't expect her to make a big fold against me. So I really wasn't going to bluff. I just wanted to keep the pot small, get a cheap showdown, and manipulate the size of the pot and get a little bit of value in case she has ace 5, ace 4, and protection against ace king, ace queen. So against good players, you can't really do this where you just like bet small and like manipulate, like you bet small in an unbalanced way and just manipulate the size of the pot. You got to worry they might check raise you thin for value and stuff. But she just wasn't the type of player that was going to do that. So I'm going to check back this river. Unless I hit a red 8 or something. And then she led into me here. So that was an interesting spot, of course. I was thinking, what would she do? I just kind of decided that I think if she had ace queen with the ace of spades or ace king with the ace of spades, she would have check raised. And that she's more likely to just check call with the queen of spades or king of spades. She could definitely have played aces this way. So that would suck because I could totally see aces doing this. I just didn't feel like she was going to value bet like kings and queens and jacks because my image was so crazy that, and she was kind of eyeing me down like, I'm watching you, motherfucker. Like, so like, I just felt like she would just let me bluff if she had like a kings and queens and jacks with a spade. That was my instinct. So I was like, man, I don't think she's value betting those. Like aces with the ace of spades, the only hand I'm worried about. I don't think she has ace king, ace queen with the ace of spades. So I decided a hero call, and she had aces. Interesting bluff choice. Yeah, I don't know. I think I would have just got the chips in on the flop because we're so shallow, right? It's only 40 big blinds deep. I think I would have played the hand the way she did if we were like 80, 70, 60 bigs deep. But she's shallow enough where like it's not a big deal if you go broke. I don't know. Maybe check calling's fine. I'd have to run this on Pio. I'm not sure, to be honest. Yeah, maybe check calling could be okay. I would just fold the turn if I was her, though, probably. Yeah, that's a pretty bad turn card. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't have a super strong opinion on how she played her hand. Yeah, but this is another example of people being really scared of their tournament life and letting you manipulate the size of the pot. So that was kind of one of the big things I gathered from playing this main event. Because again, it's not gonna be main event every tournament, but you're gonna get a couple people like that in all your main events you go and play. You know, whether it's a 1600 circuit event or a $3,300 event or 1100, whatever. People who satellited in. Talk to people, get to hear how they think. Find the people that are overvaluing the tournament life or that berate someone for playing it. Like sometimes someone, for example, someone 3-bet king queen suited because it was like earliest position, and this older gentleman to my right, like after the guy lost a hand, he was like 3-betting king queen, huh? Right. So that guy kind of is revealing to me like his strategy, and like that's the type of guy that's probably going to overvalue his tournament life and not understand some of these other things. Yeah, when people make comments like that, you could kind of predict who are going to be the people that are going to be more likely to play like this and let you manipulate the pot against them. Take it easy, MW. All right, I'll do this last hand, and then I'm going to just stick around for 5 minutes if anyone wants to call in and chat or anything, or just ask any more questions. So here, this guy limps. This pair limps. We check. Bottom pair, just checking. Turn, just checking. This player bets the river. Did they really bet that big? 4,500. Yeah, I guess they. What hand number is that? 38. I'm just double checking the sizing. Okay. So yeah, this player bet big. When they're betting big, they're basically repping like 2 pair. And so what 2 pair would they have not bet the flop or turn with? I figured they're probably betting a king on the turn. I figure they're probably raising king queen pre-flop. I figure they're not checking queen 8 because nobody tried to really represent the king. So I'm like, what two pairs does this guy have? I guess like 4 deuce suited. Yeah, I just couldn't think of a lot of two pairs they had. And you know, there's definitely some with the 4, but I'm blocking that. So I just thought this was like a nice blocker to have. And people don't really bluff in this spot very often. Yeah, definitely could have queen 8 for sure. I thought he was going to be more likely to bet the queen 8, but yeah, you never know. Yeah, maybe he's just trying to check raise me because I'm going to bet a king. So yeah, I think queen 8 is a good one that they could have for sure. Queen 8 or queen 4. So I have a pretty good blocker to that hand. I decided to raise here. Take it easy, Tina. So yeah, I decided to go for it. He tanked for a long time. He's like, man, it's really hard for you to have it here, but it's also really hard for you to be bluffing. Which is why I went big. And he eventually tank called with king 3. I think if it wasn't me and if it was you guys doing this, you probably would get away with this. So, all right, we're going to call it here. For anyone who was late to the session and didn't get to hear about our group coaching sessions, we'd meet once a week, and there is a lesson planned every week. You can go to upcoming here and see the upcoming lessons. Usually about 2 lessons in the month are going to be structured over a certain topic. You see the next one, see betting out of position, maneuvering a short stack. We'll do one where we review student hand histories, and we'll do one where we review my hand history or something like that. Eddie's asking, do you have VODs? Yeah, so these are all recorded. So you just go to library, and all the previous sessions are up here. So today's session will be up here in about 30 minutes. Or sorry, not 30 minutes, but like 3 hours. And also, if you sign up, it's $99 a month. I will email you a list of videos that you should go back and watch. I structure the videos that I send you the same way I structure my own studying. You know, start with pre-flop, then get the flop down. You know, you got to understand C betting. You got to understand facing a C bet because that's like 70% of scenarios. And then you work your way down to the turn and river and so on. So that's how I've structured a lot of this. C Tamer tried to call in. I don't know if you intended to call in or not, but if you did, I'm happy to let you on and chat. Actually says, what percentage of the lessons am I presenting? I'm presenting all of them except for one every month. Hey, Mr. Tamer. Oh, Tamer left. Anyone wants to call in and chat, ask any questions, feel free. If you want to just hit the call in button up top, or if you just want to type any questions in the chat, I'm just going to stick around for 5 minutes. Yeah, so there's 4 lessons every month. I do 3 of them, and the guy who does the other session, his name is the one session a month is Jeremy Menard. He's so appalled on ACR. He's a pretty good crusher on there. I think he's up like 300K on like ACR just in the last like 2 years or something like that. So he's a really good player. He plays all the mid and high stakes stuff. So yeah, this is So Paul, the guest coach. Yeah, really big crusher on ACR. Gotten a lot of good feedback from a lot of his lessons from a lot of the students. Any other questions before we call this session? And lastly, I'll just show the Discord group real quick for anyone who wants to know more about that. So we have a Discord group that highly encourage students to participate in. It's definitely one of the more important things that you should be doing. Talking hands with people, posting weekly, and so on. So here's what it looks like. Computer's being a little slow. Yeah, so here people talk hand histories. If you're not sure how to post hand histories, I can help you with that and have some instructions. We have study groups. People will meet up and study on their own. If you have questions about videos you watch, we have a place for you to post about those. We have stuff about live tells, crowdsourcing, live tournaments. If people want to meet up at tournaments, a lot of people end up in the same geographic location. We have a thread for online poker sites. When there's good tournaments, when there's good series, what game should you play? If you need help learning what tools you should be using, if you should be using tools, what ranges to use, and that kind of stuff. It really helps to get to have a community of people to kind of tap into and to talk about those things. Otherwise, you could spend years just wasting your time that someone could have helped you out with. Raymond's asking if I invest in crypto. Yes, I do. I'm a big believer in crypto. Am I playing any more WSOPs? Yeah, I have a couple 1500s left, I think. The 10K Bellagio is a big one I'll be playing. Jeremy, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going for us?
Pretty good. Oh, you're from U of I.
Yes,
I
sir.
believe you're the streamer I talked to on Instagram. Nice.
Part-time streamer.
Awesome. Cool. Do you have any questions off the top of your head, or just calling?
Yeah, so
yeah.
Well, both, I guess. But
okay.
I kind of called in before you mentioned that you were going to send everybody who subscribed the lessons to watch in order.
Yeah. Yep.
So I was just going to ask about that, and then also, is there a link to join the Discord, or do we just?
Yeah. Sorry, this flickering. I don't want to give anyone a seizure here. Here, all right, there we go. Okay, so you were asking about the lessons. Yeah, so the lessons that I will give you are, I'll go through the exact lessons. I'll show you them right now. New students. You sound like you're in a dorm.
Yeah, let me close my door. Sorry about that.
Good old U of I days. Backup camera. Yep. So this is the these
Sorry,
are
my
the.
bad.
It's okay. So yeah, these are the links to the videos that I'll recommend. Constructing 3-bet ranges without having to memorize charts. There's a lot like you should have access to charts, but it's so hard to memorize. And you also need to know, how do you adjust when your villain's opening too wide or too tight or folds too much, right? So this lesson helps you understand the logic and how you should think about it. So you have a pretty rough idea in game and how to adjust. And then we just go through parts of the game three. So these three are about flop play, c-betting, the check raising, and then the facing a check raise. And then we go into double barreling, calling downers, double barreling, post-up playing 3-bet pots. And then the more advanced lesson is c-betting out of position. I've done some like hardcore solver work on there. That's probably like 100 hours worth of work. That's like some really high level stuff there. I just have a couple one-off lessons like that. So yeah, that's that. And yeah, the Discord group, once you sign up, you'll get an email with the link and you could join in here. And yeah, it's amazing to me how many people I talk to who say they don't have people to talk hands with or people to share resources, because that's literally like one of the most important things. I'd probably credit that to my success in poker. And I think a lot of players would agree. Yeah.
So you said after I subscribe that I get the email for the Discord?
Yeah, once you subscribe, you'll get an email with the link to the Discord, or if you want it right away, you could just DM me or whatever. But yeah, you'll get an email within a couple of days with that stuff. Yeah. Okay. Or within like 3-4 days. Yeah. Yeah, just shoot me a message and I'll send it over to you after you subscribe.
Perfect. Yeah, I just subscribed last night.
Oh, did you? Okay, cool. So yeah, it's coming in a couple of days. What stakes do you play?
So my average buy-in is about $5, I think.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. What are your any parts of your game you're struggling with or you're unsure about?
Yeah, so I've been making a lot of deep runs recently, like final like 20, 30, like 10 even. And it's just like closing out for me. I just feel like I'm playing way too many hands, like in ICM pressure when I shouldn't be. Or maybe I should be, I'm not really sure, like with the whole ICM.
Okay, so you said you're not closing out. You feel like you're playing too many hands deeper?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it could be that you're playing the wrong type of hands. Like a lot of times I see people aren't adjusting to like playing more blocker heavy hands when they're deeper. They're still opening like 7-9 suited and 5-6 suited and stuff like that at shallower stacks. So it could be that. Um, and yeah, with ICM, here's something that people need to realize. With ICM, everybody needs to play tighter. The mid stacks need to play mega tighter. And some people think that, oh, if you're the big stack, you just get to go abuse the table and play like crazy. That's not exactly true. It's everybody plays tighter, but the big stack plays less tighter, if that makes sense. So if you go and look at a range, like you'll see the big stack's range gets like 5% tighter, 10% tighter, and everyone else's range gets like 30% tighter. And if you see a big stack really going crazy, opening any two and just going insane, you need to start three betting them. You need to start reshoving lighter, and they're just not going to be able to have the hands to continue with often enough. I'd like to do a lesson on that at some point. I got to think of the best way to structure it. I think the best way is probably just going to be when I have some deep runs in ACR to review them. We have a couple deep runs that are in the videos, but I'd like to have more of those. So yeah.
Got it.
Cool. Yeah, let me know if you have any other questions. I'm just reading Andres's question real quick. I believe I can implement so many good things online, but it gets weird when I play live. Any tips? I mean, live really is the same game as online. The only thing different is people flat too much. So you get to squeeze more. People don't check raise enough. So you get away with more C betting in some spots where you need to get worried about blown off equity. So I think really the step is understanding kind of the fundamentals and then understanding the adjustments. And once you understand both of those two, then you could kind of understand how to adjust your game live. But a lot of time it's really just people are scared to pull the trigger live. So I don't know, maybe go play some lower stakes and just get comfortable because yeah, it feels weird check raising like 5-6 on like queen 8-4 and then barreling off. And I think what I hear from a lot of students is like they get scared, they look like an idiot. But here's something you got to remember, like 90% of people lose in poker, right? So sometimes I'll get people in my chat, like when I say something, they're like, yeah, but you know, everybody knows, you know, this and everybody says this. It's like, well, why are you listening to everybody? Everybody sucks. Like everybody loses. You know what I mean? I don't mean everybody, but I mean, you don't want to listen to the masses like that, right? These are the people losing at poker. So if you're doing something smart that they don't understand, you're going to look like an idiot. And learning to not care about that is a really important skill. It's not easy. I mean, it still affects me. You know, sometimes I'm doing something that might be next level, and my peers might think it. You know, I'm a sputard. But you know that's just something you got to find a way to make peace with. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions, Jeremy? Is that it?
I mean, I definitely have a lot, but for now, I
Yeah.
think
Okay,
it's a good
cool. I mean,
start.
get in the Discord, and a lot of your questions other students have gone through as well, and maybe able to help as well. So yeah, thanks for jumping
Sure.
on, and look forward to chatting with you in the Discord and posting your hands and all that stuff.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right. Take it easy.
You too. Thanks.
All right, everyone. I'm gonna call it here unless anyone has any more questions. All right. Take it easy. It was fun. It was good to talk to a bunch of new faces, and I hope to see some of you joining the group so you can learn with us and be a part of the community. WSOP is coming up very soon. Again, it's going to be June. So yeah, it's a good time to not waste too much time because before you know it, it's going to be WSOP and everyone's cramming to study like the last month or the few weeks before it. So, you know, get on it in advance and get in the process. It's all about the process. People come and ask me, you know, before WSOP, like the day before, they're like, any last minute tips? It's like, it's too late. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to switch up your game. Like, you know, you gotta do that stuff in advance. Yeah. I don't know if they officially announced it, but I think it's just almost like obvious that it's going to be in June because there's just no way. I mean, they got to do it when kids are in summer and you know, it's just so much easier for parents and stuff like that. I think they've hinted at it being in June, July, but yeah. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Peace out. Thanks for joining. It was fun. Hope you guys learned a lot. I think the rumor for the location is Bally's in Paris. All right. Take it easy, everyone. Peace out.